Welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast, prideofdetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Facebook. As always, we tell you know where to find us. Live now on twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit and youtube.com/at Pride of Detroit as the Pride of Detroit PODcast enters off-season mode. The season is over. The hunt begins anew. And I must thank everyone who has been listening to us for all of these months, for this entire season. I've seen the numbers. I've seen how many people have been listening to us, especially in January. And rest assured, the ride never ends on POD. We never sleep. We will continue. We continue this through the offseason, through free agency, through the draft. There's no breaks on the POD machine. We will have some new podcasts coming for you here in February, not just PODcast, but our lineup changes a little bit. We had a little bit of a lull last week. We'll have midweek mailbag back before you know it. Some new offerings coming along here and on the feed as well. We've kind of gotten a good groove, having it like 3-4 shows a week, and I'd like to keep it going that way. But I am Chris Perfett, the adequate host at Chris Perfett on Twitter. Coming up today on the PODcast, we do need to talk about coaching staff, coordinators returning, and fun spin cycles and media wars happening that are just very fun. I know some Lions fans will say, "Oh, I don't really care about this." You care. It's drama. You care. You care. And we'll also be talking about the end of the year presser from general manager Brad Holmes, and some fire in the belly from that man who might be even more fired up than Dan Campbell. But first, Jeremy Reisman, the fearless leader at Detroit on Lion, cleanly shaven, and somehow did not get insulted for removing his mustache by said Brad Holmes. How are we today, Jeremy?
I'm great. Fired up from that Brad Holmes press conference. We'll get into why in a little bit, but fired up from what he said, and fired up for avoiding his crosshairs as well. That was nice.
The speaking of fights between media and people here, that's a fun little episode. We'll talk there. But first, Ryan Matthews at Ryan_POD. Speaking of someone who, so not a visual medium, Ryan, but for those who are watching on Twitch and YouTube, they can read it. But for those at home listening on the podcast version, Ryan has been displaying a whiteboard, much like, who's that one guy from Denver?
Woody Page.
Woody Page. He has unveiled a Woody Page style whiteboard. And right now it says, "I'm glad Brad doesn't read any of my articles. #Reek for Malik."
Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing wonderful. I'm glad that I wasn't in Allen Park today.
Yeah. People say things. What can I say? People say things, and people then say things back. That is the cycle of life. And very soon I'm going to talk about how two groups of people have been saying things, because first on the docket, the Lions scored probably the biggest coup. We talked about it a little bit last week on coordinators returning to the Detroit Lions. Now, since that podcast where we learned on Tuesday Ben Johnson was going to be returning with the Detroit Lions, he turned down the Commanders' job and previously turned down the Seahawks, who were leaning towards him as well. But also now with every coaching position now filled, Mike McDonald for the Seahawks and Dan Quinn for the Commanders means Aaron Glenn will be remaining as the Lions defensive coordinator as well. We'll start there before talking about some new changes that we've got here. But which do you think is the more interesting story to start with, Jeremy? Is it Aaron Glenn and maybe some mixed feelings from certain fans that I personally reject, but we'll talk about that. Or is it this war of words that's going on right now with Ben Johnson and the Commanders?
I'll let someone else lead off with the drama. I'd rather talk a little bit about Aaron Glenn, because listen, I'm happy he's returning. I think having that sort of consistency in your defense, in your scheme, in the expectations. I mean, the NFLPA poll, we're going to be constantly bringing it up because it is such a big deal that he has the respect of the room. That matters so much, that I think once the talent gets to where it needs to be on defense, I really think this defense has a chance of being very good. That said, I'm a little disappointed in the rest of the league. Like, it doesn't seem like he came close to any of these jobs. He interviewed for 3 or 4 of them, and with all the news coming out of Washington, it seemed like Aaron Glenn was the +1 in their trip to Detroit. And reading Diana Rossini's whole article, like, Aaron Glenn was mentioned once in her entire, like, 2,000-word article about the Washington search. So he never really felt like a serious candidate, and I understand the on-field product isn't what they are, but, like, I really thought that NFLPA report was going to carry him and give him some serious consideration somewhere else, but seems like the NFL hasn't quite caught up to the idea that a head coach should be a leader first and a schematic guy second. And that to me is, I thought that was going to change a little. When you look around the league, like some of these leader types like Dan Campbell, I was going to say like Mike Vrabel, but I guess maybe not the best example since he got fired and no one wants big,
people are
scary
scared.
Coaches.
A big guy, big, strong, scary man, too scary for football.
Yeah, but I guess that's kind of my overall take. Like I'm very happy to have him back, but I think he deserves to be an NFL head coach, and I'm disappointed that seems like now 3 years into him taking interviews, no one has taken him that seriously.
Ryan, is this? I know what's on everyone's mind, and it feels extremely so that this is a case of people using Aaron Glenn just to tick off a Rooney Rule box. Like Jeremy, I am bewildered that he is not getting more chances to coach. Like, he's having these interviews right now. I think that I even disagree with fans. Like we've talked throughout the season how well he has schemed defensively. I know it gets like it will come up nonstop about how many big plays the Lions have given up, but you're not hiring Aaron Glenn to be directly your defensive coordinator. You're hiring him to be your leader of your locker room. And for whatever reason, he's not getting that look. So it then comes back to the inevitable question of whether or not the RR applies here. If it's just people checking off a box for a Rooney Rule, which is very disrespectful to the man and very short-sighted for what he could offer to an organization.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think that if you look at like some numbers for Matt Patricia's final year in New England, I don't know how much you could really spot the difference between what he was able to accomplish in terms of defensive efficiency and Aaron Glenn in terms of defensive efficiency. But it's unfortunate that, to Jeremy's point, right? Like a guy who so clearly has the command and the respect of the players who play for him. And we talked about that a lot when it comes to their run defense, right? Like that's an attitude thing. That's a thing that comes from the top down. And if the guy at the top isn't preaching the right stuff, if he isn't pushing the right buttons, if he isn't pushing the gas in the right way, I think a lot of players could get turned off from playing an especially physical brand of football. And that's what the Lions defense does. And Aaron Glenn is spearheading all of that. And Aaron Glenn is their leader. And it's unfortunate that there's another cycle that comes and goes. And it's not that Aaron Glenn wasn't considered, because he was. He got interviews. It's just it doesn't seem like he was considered seriously. And it's beyond unfortunate. It's sad. It's really sad to see a guy who I think his time is going to come. But at the same time, you look at a guy who just got let go from Washington in Eric Bieniemy. And I know a lot of people said, hey, his time will eventually come, and all those years under Andy Reid, and then he finally gets a chance to be an offensive coordinator in Washington and a new coaching staff in there with Dan Quinn, and Eric Bieniemy's without a job. So I think that these opportunities that are ahead of Aaron Glenn are still going to be there. It's just I'm wondering when teams are going to start taking him seriously as a head coaching candidate and not just a member of what the Detroit Lions have built, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Because, I mean, at some point, they're going to come for a lot of Lions coaches. They already are, right? Like, there's a couple other that have been interviewed. No one obviously has gotten hired. But, yeah, I think that's a really good point, because this is not just a Dan Campbell tree person. This is a guy who has plenty of merit on his own. He was rising up the ranks in New Orleans before he decided to move to Detroit. And yeah, I don't know. To me, it's frustrating, but I mean, I guess we should count our blessings from the Lions side, because as I pointed out on Twitter last week, Aaron Glenn is now the third longest tenured defensive coordinator in football. Ben Johnson is tied for being the longest tenured offensive coordinator in football. I know that sounds ridiculous considering Ben Johnson is entering year 3 and Aaron Glenn is entering year 4, but that's how much overturn there is, whether it is your coach loses patience in you and tosses you aside, or you succeed long enough to get poached. And the Lions are now in a good enough position to have neither of those happen, and that's a huge blessing.
It is a problem of instability around the league, I think, in coordinators, to what you're talking, Jeremy. And yes, it is good for the Lions. They get to run it back. It's just, I think we also, as fans and as, people who just, I think all these guys are easy to root for. It just kind of, again, it's two-sided, right? You're happy to see Aaron Glenn still be here in Detroit, but at the same time, you want him to succeed professionally as well. And that's, I think, why this particular story, we take this particular angle with Aaron Glenn. Another story that has kind of been creeping around has been this war of words between Ben Johnson and the Commanders. As I just said, last week you guys talked about it. I was not on for the particular subject, but Ben Johnson returning with the Detroit Lions, deciding late, just like he did last year with the Panthers, to return to Detroit. It seems he has a lot of attachment to this particular group of men that he is coaching right now. But what has happened, almost bewildering, has been a massive war of leaks going on between the Commanders and Ben Johnson in regards to who really was at the fault of why this didn't work out. Because I think there is a particular, I'm going to use an anime term. The Commanders are trying to act tsundere right now. They're trying to act like they didn't actually want Ben Johnson in the first place, even though when the news broke, they were mid-flight coming out to Detroit to meet with Ben Johnson. And now everything we've heard since then has been, well, actually, he wasn't the lock we thought that people said he was. That was a line, I believe, from Adam Schefter, repeated more than a few times, which again begs the question, why were you in the middle of a flight up there to meet him if he wasn't the lock that you thought it was? Everyone, to the point where we had other insiders talking about this was the guy who was going to be the next Commanders head coach, to now it was from several places to several places, because Seattle people are saying this too, that, well, Ben Johnson didn't actually interview very well. And then there's been this odd side discussion about, apparently over text, that he wanted too much money. From Ben Johnson's camp on the other side has been denigrations on Commanders ownership, that they were off-putting, that they are, quote, basketball people, not football people. This gets more and more ridiculous and more catty the more we play it out. And I can understand why Lions fans don't like this, because the only important thing is that Ben Johnson is back. So I guess ultimately, though, this is a guy who's now turned down a head coaching job twice in 2 years. And I think you'll keep getting opportunities, Jeremy, and especially next year, there could be some interesting jobs that open up. But this does feel like a lot of people are trying to burn some bridges right now.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of odd and interesting that Ben Johnson, and to be clear, he wasn't offered either of these jobs, the Panthers job last year or the Washington job this year. But it does feel like, and there are definitely some rumors floating around that these interviews that he essentially canceled to come back were formalities to get hired. And it's a frustrating situation. The whole NFL coaching cycle and process is ridiculous. The fact that that Washington was already behind everyone else, they were they were 8 out of 8 to hire a head coach. They were waiting patiently this entire time for Ben Johnson to get out of the playoffs. He did. And then Ben decided, and yeah, it was poor timing, right? I even heard today, I think it was from Albert Breer, that, his agent texts the Commanders while they're flying to Detroit. The Commanders don't get that text because they're in the air. They see it on Twitter first, And then when they land, the text goes through. And so, like, yeah, they probably have some right to be pissed off a little bit. But at the same time, this is kind of how it works. And it's not the Lions' fault that they've had to wait all this time. It's the NFL's fault. The way the coaching cycle is set up is set up to screw the people that are being the most patient. And that sucks for the Commanders, but this weird drama, suddenly Ben Johnson is like arrogant, he doesn't get along, he's more of a guy who likes to stand in the tower and he can't lead and he costs too much. Like, all this unnecessary stuff just makes Washington look super, super petty about the entire thing. And the other point I want to make, this whole notion that, like, Ben Johnson's burning bridges. He burned the bridges with Carolina. He burned the bridge. Like, shut up. If he leads another top 5 offense in 2024, no one is going to give a crap about what he did to Washington. Give me a break.
I think it says more about the ownership in both of those places. Like, I know the Commanders just got rid of Dan Snyder and everyone thinks it's a new leaf over there, but it's been rough, Ryan, for them to get going off the ground. And we know everything we know. David Tepper has told you exactly who he is by now as well. I don't think those are necessarily like, if there are bridges being burned, then farewell to those bridges, I guess. But what do you make of this whole situation?
Well, I do want to bring it back to the first point because, hey, Commanders ownership, tell us how unserious you were about Aaron Glenn without telling us how unserious you were.
Yeah,
exactly. You're so upset that you're on a flight to go interview not only Ben Johnson, but also Aaron Glenn, and you throw this hissy fit in the media about how Ben Johnson is this and Ben Johnson's that. Whatever happened with the interview with Aaron Glenn? Like, it's so painfully obvious that, again, like, it felt like maybe a courtesy to interview Aaron Glenn because you really want to get to Ben Johnson. Like, that feels so disingenuous. And then also, like, cool, Ben Johnson, you want to throw a lit match behind you to organizations like Carolina and Washington? You'll be just fine. You'll find another job. Josh McDaniels has gotten multiple head coaching jobs. Josh McDaniels got a job after he agreed to be the Indianapolis Colts head coach and then left them at the altar. Ben Johnson is going to have zero problem getting a job. And the thing that's awesome about it is, go ahead, burn all those bridges. I'd love for you to be the Lions offensive coordinator for the next 3, 4, 5 years. Like, that's awesome. Hey, if I'm as a Lions fan, Ben Johnson, call out more ownership. Like, I love the line about them being basketball people because one of my favorite pastimes is just perusing Magic Johnson's Twitter, which is just riddled with, like, very obvious statements about anything that happened in the world of sports. And the most obvious one of recent time is that the Washington Commanders ended up with egg on their face because they were awful at organizing themselves, right? They were awful at delegating their resources and for managing. I mean, this is what happens. Like, you got stuck. And I agree with Jeremy's point. Like, the way that the NFL coaching cycle happens, like with the playoffs and, you know, I mean, even take two teams, right? Take like the Cardinals and the Colts, for example, from last year. I mean, they were waiting until the Super Bowl, right, to figure out what was going on with Steichen and what was going on with Gannon. Like, it feels like the NFL is doing a disservice to their people that have an opportunity for upward opportunities by having the cycle like this. So, like, it comes at the expense of a guy like Aaron Glenn, right? Like, maybe if the Lions get eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, maybe Aaron Glenn has a job just because he's more available to talk to people. Like, and I know the Ben Johnson stuff is fun. It's catty. It's whatever. He's still the Lions offensive coordinator. That's all that matters at the end of the day. But I think, like, Aaron Glenn got head coaching interviews before he got to Detroit. Like, he got a head coaching interview with the New York Jets when he was a positions coach in New Orleans. So, like, I don't know. Like, I think my big takeaway from the Ben Johnson stuff is, like, the Commanders just weren't serious about Aaron Glenn, and that sucks too.
It does feel like the Commanders were trading for a lot. Like, from what you're talking to, like, it's felt more and more like the Commanders have been trading on this goodwill that, like, hey, we're not Dan Snyder. And it's hasn't really worked out. Let's move on to talk about new additions for the Lions because they are adding someone. Terrell Williams is going to be the new D-line coach and run game coordinator, Jeremy. He formerly of the Tennessee Titans. He was actually at the Senior Bowl as part of the Titans staff when the news broke and that he would be taking the Lions job. So this is very fascinating. What can you tell us about, because he has Dan Campbell ties going way back to Miami.
Yeah.
And even crazier, he coached Brad Holmes.
Yeah, that's my favorite bit about him is that he was the D-line coach for North Carolina AT&T or A&T, not AT&T. And so, like, that's crazy. I was hoping Brad Holmes was going to get asked that today, but he didn't, and I didn't have an opportunity to ask a question today. But really, I mean, super popular coach here. Like, everyone in Tennessee loved him. His players, very, very respectful of him. And I was perusing what some Titans writers were saying. One said that the defensive line has been the position group that has seen the most growth over the past 3-4 years under him. And then you mentioned it. He wasn't just part of the Titans staff at the Senior Bowl. He was the head coach of the American team at the Senior Bowl. He was also the head coach for the Titans during one preseason game. So he is on a fast track to not only be a really good defensive line coach for the Lions, but if you're looking and you're wondering if Aaron Glenn finally gets a job, who's going to step up and potentially be that defensive coordinator or maybe even a future head coach, Terrell Williams could very well be that guy. I know a lot of people have circled Kelvin Shepard. Williams has been around a lot longer than Shepard is and has already put in his dues. So I like this hire from a developmental, the Lions defensive line has a bunch of young players that need to take that next step. That's good. He's good for that. And for succession plans, I think you're in a good spot for a guy that could very well step in and be your defensive coordinator a year or two down the line.
And I think one of my favorite tweets that you included in that reactions article that you did, Jeremy, was Teron Davenport talking about Tavondre Sweat at the Senior Bowl, like kind of like a fringe first round guy, defensive tackle, and Sweat saying that like Williams helped show him how to better use his hands in just 2 days of working with him at the Senior Bowl. Like, okay, like a guy with like maybe first round talent and he's like picking stuff up like that. I mean, awesome to be coachable like that, but then awesome to know that this feels akin to the Scotty Montgomery hiring in last year's offseason and losing Deuce Staley, but this one feels even more so that if Aaron Glenn does get an opportunity, he could very well see himself maybe in a defensive coordinator position. Whereas Scotty Montgomery, it seemed like maybe you didn't want to think about that just because you didn't want Ben Johnson to leave. But also by the same token, it seemed like there was kind of this line of progression that maybe we assembled based on Ben Johnson's uprising, right? Like from passing game coordinator, tight end coach, things like that, and then getting to where he is. But like, I think this Williams hire is fantastic. Like, it's awesome.
I'll be very fascinated to see what he does as the run game coordinator, almost as much as the D-line coach, just because, we've seen some good stuff with the Lions run game, but he's also Williams coming from a very run-centric offense with Tennessee and, what they were able to do with why am I blanking on the name? Derrick Henry. I was thinking more the other guy that I took in fantasy, and I just help me here. Tajay Spears. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, off season has hit me really hard with the adequacy already.
But this before I know we're running up against it here, but it is interesting that the Lions are now going to have 3 defensive line coaches in 3 years. I guess it's only a 1-year stint for John Scott. At this point, we don't really know. He could be transferring to a different department. He could be fired. We don't really know at this point. But it's kind of necessary, right? And it's a one thing that I admire about this staff is when something isn't working, and I'm not trying to throw John Scott under the bus here, they don't waste time into trying to figure out something. And if you look at maybe the biggest criticism of someone like Brad Holmes, it's like he continues to plug these resources in the defensive line, and it continues to be an underperforming unit. You look at guys like Broderick Martin didn't see the field at all. Levi Onwuzurike is dealing with a back injury, but he was healthy this year.
You wonder
Josh
where
Paschal.
the help is on the edge for Aiden Hutchinson in some games.
Josh Paschal is a guy that you probably are expecting to hold that role in some sort of, and he took a step this year, but I think be right to expect more than what you got out of Josh Pascal so far. So considering all they have all that youth, that untapped potential in the defensive line, I like the fact that they're being aggressive, and it kind of speaks to this team's overall philosophy, which is like, okay, we might be good here or okay here, but we can be better. Same thing with the running backs last year, right? Not just the running back coach, but like the running backs, Swift and Jamal. Those guys are good. We can do better. Our defensive line coach might have been good. We can do better. We're not going to overlook any opportunities to improve, whether that's on the roster, whether it's on the coaching staff. So I'm a big fan of this.
Well, you mentioned Brad Holmes, and that's where we're going next on the Pride of Detroit PODcast. But first, it may be the offseason, but we're still talking about meat. The meat game never ends. Unlike the NFL season, they say the NFL season never ends too, actually. It's year long. We are always talking about the NFL, and guess what, Ryan? We're always talking about meat. There's always more meat in the world that can be processed, put together, smoked, cured, packaged, and right to your door thanks to Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. I'm sorry, I threw it to Ryan, so now I kind of expect him to say something, even though he hates me doing these reads.
I don't hate you doing these reads. I'm just saying that if you have the opportunity, you should order more beef to your door than Brad Holmes brought to his press conference today.
Righteous Felon Jerky and Meat Sticks are available to Lions players at the training facilities at Allen Park. It is the jerky that fuels your Detroit Lions. 2-ounce bags of jerky with 16 to 20 grams of protein. Meat Sticks with 8 grams. If it's good enough for the Lions, it's going to be good enough for you too. Righteous Felon is based in Westchester, Pennsylvania, using locally sourced all-natural Black Angus beef. Listen, if you're new to the PODcast, I think you understand, all right, these guys are doing their read. Please rest assured, we eat this stuff. We enjoy the hell out of it.
I literally just ordered a full new variety pack that should be on the way in the next day or two.
We are probably 80% responsible for the reason why their turkey jerky is never in stock now. And as soon as it comes back into stock, we just buy up all of it. We hoard it. Ryan in particular hoards it because that turkey jerky is made of something magical, man. Something magical.
Buy your meat.
We're going to help you buy the meat too. RighteousFelon.com. You go online, you order your meat, gets shipped to you nice and easy. But we're also giving you a discount. 15% off with our code POD15. You use it at checkout, you get meat on sale, and you help us out in turn. All right, you can help give back to us. You get meat in the process. We help you get the meat cheap. Everyone wins in this arrangement. So RighteousFelon.com, promo code POD15 at checkout. Any order you want. We love you. We'll be right back on the Pride of Detroit PODcast.
That was my Graham Glasgow impression.
Chris finds the most awkward ways to throw to Ryan. Yes.
I like Ginger Snaps question. Do you guys really eat it, or are you just jerking us around?
Well done. Man, you know who could sponsor us next is Liquid IV. I've been drinking that shit like every day.
What is that, an energy drink or just water?
It is a sports drink in like a powder in a powder stick. But they have a version with energy that has like about as much caffeine as like 1 to 2 cups of coffee. I've been putting it in my water bottles and yuzu pineapple, and I got like a whole giant thing of it on sale at Costco, and my God, I have cut energy drinks out of my diet entirely.
Nice. Good for you.
They're very good.
Surprising to hear. I drank way too much caffeine today, but we should get to the
want some alerts?
The alerts. Let's go to the alerts.
Let's get some alerts.
Speaking of which, I am about to go fill up my water bottle and put in the stick for today too. But
perfect.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get some water because I'm kind of a little parched. But you take care of the alerts.
Okay. Let's start with Twitch Guy 0529. Thank you for the follow. Guess where? On Twitch. No decaf, by the way. 30-person raid. Thanks to everyone who hangs out over in Chris's Twitch page before we go live. That'll probably become a more common thing now that we're in the off season. That's twitch.tv/nodecaf, NODEKAF. Timo, thank you for subscribing over on YouTube. Captain James Kirk, 34 months subscribed on Twitch, says still a little heartbroken, but it's always great spending the off season with y'all. Yeah, sorry it's been so long. It was weird podcasting once all week last week, but also I feel way more rested and relaxed and happy and energetic to bring you guys some more We'll crank it back up. We might even do a midweek mailbag this week. I don't know about First Bite, Ryan. I don't have any ideas for guests, but hey, that's a good way. It's a good reminder. You can always suggest stuff. You could go to our Discord, !Discord, if you want to join our Discord, and there's literally a suggestion box channel. So if you're like, hey, why don't you get this guy to talk about this? Sure.
Yeah, let's try to get Mike Vrabel to talk about Terrell Williams.
Sure. I mean, he's not doing anything else
He's not
right
doing
now.
anything.
But yeah. Robo, thank you for the 31 months. That's just the beginning. Let's go Lions. Strong statement from Brad Holmes today, man. Got me fired up all over again.
During his preamble?
Yeah, his 11-minute opener. Sure. Which I feel like Dan is starting to do that too, and I feel like it's starting to be strategic where they're like, all right, this 15-minute press conference, if I take up 8 minutes of it, I'll have to answer 3 questions. I'm not in love with that, but I get it. Bougie, thank you for the 19-month subscribe to us on Twitch. The Pintar, 12 months, a full year. Subscribe to the channel, says, wow, what a treat. Spent a lot of quality time with my special guys in the past year. Hey, we spent a lot of quality time with y'all too. 10 bits from Captain James Kirk says we need a Ben Johnson emote. I think we suddenly have a bajillion emote slots. I think Twitch just opened the floodgates. And so this offseason, that's going to be a goal of mine. I know we need an FTR. We need a Brad Holmes.
FTR. Oh, refs, right.
Yep.
Did we ever pull over my FTV?
I'd probably not, okay. Unless you did it.
No, I made an FTV. I thought I sent it to you.
You probably did, but I haven't done anything with it.
No, it's fine. But you and I can work on some of that stuff too, and we can just yeah, as you say, just put this shit together.
Yeah. And so we're partners, Jill. So we should have a bajillion spots. We're gonna have a bunch of spots.
Hell yeah.
That's exciting. So we'll work on that. Another 10 bits from Captain James Kirk says, when the defense is top 10 next year, Glenn will get a job. Maybe that's it. It wouldn't surprise me if that's it. They just need to see the results on the field, which I think is silly a little bit. Because, I mean, here's what I also bet about Aaron Glenn. I bet he's picked up so much from Dan Campbell in terms of delegation, in terms of just keeping his hands off. He might be the de facto defensive coordinator if he takes a head coaching job, but it wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't. It wouldn't surprise me if he hires a full-time defensive coordinator and trusts them to call the defensive plays.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at all the other coaches who got hired. You'd consider Raheem. I don't even know how old Raheem Morris is in comparison to Aaron Glenn, but it feels like Raheem Morris probably benefited again from just being in Sean McVay's orbit.
Right.
So, I don't know. I wonder how much of it too, though, and maybe I just believe a little bit of what Washington's saying about what they're saying about Ben Johnson in terms of rubbing them the wrong way. Maybe that's just all these guys, right? Like Dan and Ben and Aaron and the guys that they bring in. They're football guys, you know what I mean? And I don't know, maybe that'll rub some people the wrong way, but it's just crazy to hear all this stuff, right? Mike Vrabel's shoulders are too broad. He's discredited.
It's the dumbest thing I have heard.
You know what I mean? Ben Johnson would rather be a mad scientist in a room. What? How many mental what disqualifies you from getting a job? It's that apparently being black sometimes, in Aaron Glenn's case, I don't know, what's going on?
I'll say this about Ben Johnson, he doesn't carry that same leadership gene that Aaron Glenn does, but that doesn't mean he can't be a leader, right? And I don't get a sense, he wasn't in the top 5 of the NFLPA poll, but like I have never even gotten a small sense from anybody in that locker room that Ben Johnson's like an a-hole. Like, he can get fiery, he can yell at players, probably more so than Aaron Glenn does. And we see, like, I've seen him pissed off plenty of times, but not in like an abusive way, not in a way that tells me he can't, like, he doesn't have interpersonal skills or anything like that. And like, what he's done with Jared Goff, the way he's collaborated with him and involved him in the process, like, that should tell you all you need to know about his ability to work with players.
Nah, I don't want any of that.
Don't want any of that. I can only imagine, and I think, like, I've long suspected this on why young offensive coordinators have been so popular as hires too, is that these guys really are like, there is a level of control I think that ownership is looking for in the coaches they are hiring, that they just don't want to deal with anyone who has a strong independent personality. And it's why, like, I mean, I'm going to throw him under the bus, but like Jerry Jones, why did he stick by Jason Garrett so long? Because he knew he had a thumb over Jason Garrett. This is why he took Mike McCarthy. He's got a thumb over Mike McCarthy. Like, but a lot of these young coordinators are guys that are going to be beholden more to the actions of a front office and giving front office power and giving ownership power rather than dealing with, the desire. And we just saw it this year with what happened in Carolina, where Frank Reich wanted CJ Stroud, and Tepper and Tepper was telling the front office that they're going to be taking Bryce Young. Like, they want to win any particular conflicts that might come up.
Yeah. These basketball guys, they don't know what they're doing.
It is. Sorry, I'll stop talking about the Commanders. I just find it fascinating on how people thought that all it was going to take was getting rid of Dan Snyder to get the stink off that organization. It's going to take a little more work.
A little more deep cleaning.
By the way,
scrub the tub.
Brazil. I see the Brazil news broke when I was getting water.
Yeah, no, that broke right at the end of the first segment. The Eagles will be hosting the game in Brazil. The Lions do not play the Eagles on the road next year, which means the Lions will not be playing in Brazil. And I'm not entirely sure if all of the international games have been announced, but I think they have, which means the Lions will not be playing internationally in 2024, which is good news for Lions home season ticket holders, because that means they'll have all of their home games in Detroit.
Especially with the season tickets getting more expensive, sure.
Exactly. Where was it? Ben Freddy, thank you for the 4 months subscribed to us on Twitch. Cam James Kirk 1-bit says good news is now beyond a shadow of a doubt, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt which coach wins a coach's Royal Rumble, with Vrabel not getting a head coach offer. That's right.
Hey, it's the big show.
Is there anyone else that can even hold a candle to Dan Campbell right now? Saleh, maybe?
No.
But now we know that Saleh's kind of soft inside, right? After that. Who wrote that? I don't remember who wrote. Was it Wickersham? I don't remember.
Was it ESPN?
I don't remember.
Or was it? Yeah. Look, you're not going to be in trouble. Just tell me who did it.
Reed? No, not Andy Reid. Stop it. Dan Quinn, maybe? D'Amico's a good one.
Do they have to be head coaches?
Yeah.
Antonio Pierce.
That's a good one too, yeah. Maybe. We'll see. The Zoe, or the Zoe 5. I don't know. The Zos. Thank you for the 11 months. Says you guys are awesome. Thanks for all that you do. Hey, appreciate that. Roar the Lions UK. 100 bits says Brad Holmes is a villain, and I'm totally here for it. Yeah, he's starting to lean into it, man. And even though it's the media that's in the crosshairs, it's entertaining. And I don't mind someone spiking the football when they've earned it. and he's earned it. We'll get into it. Josh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what would be the most lopsided wrestling match, and why is it probably Dan Campbell versus Mike McDonald? Or Sean McVay? Could Sean McVay and Mike McDonald win in a handicap match?
McDaniels. Or Mike McDonald. Do you mean McDaniels or McDonald? Now I'm getting confused.
I meant McDonald because he's small. But also McDaniel is small too.
Yeah.
Could those three guys beat Dan Campbell in a handicap match? I don't know. I'm not so sure.
I think Dan's carrying all of those guys over the top rope and throwing them off to the ground.
Those three guys would definitely be in some kind of like Sunshine, West Coast, like boy band kind of gimmick.
I see vaguely. I don't know. I don't know if this week is a good week to be talking WWE, given what's been going on there. But
I want to see.
I was talking about wrestling booking, but yeah,
I want to see Dan Campbell versus like the Kyle Shanahan tree, like all these like bro types that are pretty scrawny, like. Give me Kyle Shanahan. Give me why can't I think of the Packers head coach?
LaFleur.
Yeah, give me LaFleur, and then I don't know. If you want to throw McVay in there, you can too.
Yeah. Like Dan Campbell can handle anybody who wears a flat brim hat,
right?
Like forward. Like
but doesn't that feel like some sort of like wrestling group? It's just like the Shanahan crew.
Yeah.
And everyone hates him. Like the entire crowd hates him. They're just like
they're heel,
pompous,
stuffy. Yeah.
They're always wearing visors and sunglasses.
Yeah.
God, everyone had that thing with Mike McDaniel for a little bit, where it's like, oh, he's cursing. Ooh, that's cool. Like, come on.
Joshua Mercer, 44 months subscribed to the channel, says coming up on my 5th Twitch baby. Yeah, that's very true. And how many years is that? That's coming up on 4, right? Get there by not quite the draft, after the draft. 50 bits from Captain James Kirk says, do you think Ben's decision to stay has to do with seeing how great the relationship is here between ownership, general manager, and head coach? I'm thinking he sold it that it needs to be this way for him to succeed. Interesting. I'm not sure if he's going to say he needs it, but I certainly think the stability, the coziness of his job, the support he gets from head coach, general manager. I mean, I think even Brad Holmes said today, like, I think getting those guys back is a testament to our culture, testament to our organization and how much we respect the people. And like I said, like Dan Campbell's an expert delegator, and so he's staying out of these guys' way in a way that makes them feel empowered. That's a nice thing to have, especially when you got a big pay raise last year.
Yeah. And it puts Ben Johnson in the position to name his number, right? Because like if like I need to make this much money, if I know that like I have to maybe not have the kind of cozy situation I have in Detroit. Like
it's like, you want to pry me away from these guys that I like, then you got to make it worth my while.
Make him that offer he can't refuse. Mike the Murray, thank you for the 13 months. Says love your show. Hey, appreciate it, Mike. Hey. Kula, 15 months subscribed to the channel, says I had a Lions mentality breakdown yesterday. I thought I was okay. I guess I'm not. The Sunday after was always going to be tough. When we have to sit here and listen, I like the Pro Bowl games. The Pro Bowl actual game, the flag football game, it's a mess. It's horrible.
It's not
good.
Someone said it best. It's not for us. It's for kids.
I tuned in, and as soon as I tuned in, it was just chaos. Nobody knew the rules. Yeah. There was flag guarding on Baker. It was like a 5-minute delay. Ray Lewis looks just like perplexed. He's like completely like, I don't understand it. Eli's talking to the ref, and he's trying to understand, like, well, we're at the 21. And like I just tweeted out, and I was like, I've tuned into the Pro Bowl for a total of 5 minutes, and it's just an absolute mess. And somebody responded, and they're like, the funny thing is, like, I don't know when you tuned in because it's been like this all game.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank God for the tug of war in the middle of it though.
Yeah.
Which Aiden Hutchinson and the NFC just thoroughly dominating the tug of war.
I think they won all but one of the like skills events. Like literally every single one, which was interesting, and I don't know what it says about the game. I don't know. But
it's like all-star. It's all these all-star events are kind of turning into the skills competitions are more interesting than the game itself.
Yes.
Like only the baseball one kind of still retains some value being a baseball game, but are people I don't know. Hockey's not my sport. I'll ask you guys, are people watching the NHL All-Star break for the All-Star game itself?
I don't think so. I mean, I find the like fastest skater and hardest shot and agility stuff, that sort of stuff is more interesting to me because no one is trying. You can tell everyone's half-assing it out there, and it's just not fun to watch. I will say though, like I don't think there's a ton of motivation for the NFL players to win. I know they get like $80,000 paycheck or something if they win, and I know me saying those words out loud, that sounds like a lot of money, and for some of these players it is, but not for Pro Bowlers typically. And so like the very last defensive play of the game was like almost a legit snap. Like they were playing hard because the game was
$80,000 play.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that I guess was fun, but I don't know. Like I don't hate on the Pro Bowl as much as everyone else seems to love to just pile on, because I thought dodgeball was fun. I thought trying to catch as many balls from a punt jugs machine is fun. I think watching Aiden Hutchinson like jump up and slap balls out of the air is fun, and watching Penei Sewell, and who was he paired up with on the sled? Someone else that is just an absolute hoss.
What was it? Jason Kelsey that was riding it and like using his like momentum.
Like, yep.
Trying to like
Tristan Wirfs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that sort of stuff is fun, and the players are out there having fun. So like
they're having fun out there. I think the only regret I still have is that it's in Orlando. And I do think that like they've gotten the format back to something manageable, but now like take it back to Honolulu. Come on. Like none of these guys want, like half these guys are probably turning down the Pro Bowl because it's like, oh, Disney World. I guess I go there all the time with my kids. Like that. I mean, you lost two things from the original Pro Bowl. One, that it was after the season, so a lot more guys could go, versus this right now, but also that it was in Hawaii.
Right.
And it meant something to the local people in Hawaii too. That like, I understand there's other stuff to it, but like, I do think that you've made this great big spectacle of it, but putting it to Orlando just seems so, there's nothing magical about Orlando. I'm sorry.
It's the most magical place on earth.
Chris is trying to take shots at every Disney adult in the world.
I'm in LA. I hate those people. I hate Disney adults with my heart.
They do give off a little bit of creepy vibes to me, but I don't want to ick anybody's
I say this knowing that my sister is going to be coming to LA at some point to visit me because she wants to go to Disneyland with our nephew. So
I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. That's the term.
There you go. I you know what? As far as amusement park rides go, I mean, that still shot of Penei and Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs losing his mind on the Jurassic Park Universal Studios ride.
It feels like the tiniest, smallest little bit of consolation prize for them not playing football. But it was good. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Just don't take the Pro Bowl that seriously. Like, I know we all hate that certain people get there, especially when like 8 people drop out and like the 10th best NFC quarterback ends up making it, like they did this year. Who was it in the NFC? It was Geno. I don't remember anybody else, but I know the top 3 backed out. Jared backed out.
Geno Smith. Good. I mean, it is. I'll say it again. It's especially the skills competition. You can tell during the broadcast they were trying to get kids on the camera all the time. It's for kids. It is for kids to try to see them do cool things and getting them interested in football that way. Like it's not for us.
Yeah.
They do need to get rid of the best catch though. That's a dumb event. It was dumb last year. Amon-Ra's win was kind of boring. I think one of the guys this year didn't catch it. Like he got 3 attempts and he missed all 3, and so you're just left, oh, I wonder who's gonna win. Who's gonna win the fan vote? The guy who didn't catch it or the guy who caught it?
You're describing the NBA dunk contest right now. Like that's the same exact problem they have with that, but like that's stale. So like that's why
go first, get 9s across the board, and then if someone does something cooler, like, or I don't know, like I'm trying to remember how you remember how it goes, Ryan, because like this happens every year.
They've changed it so many times. Like for a while it was like you only got so many attempts, and then after that it was like, well, you get as many attempts as you want, but you get like 30 seconds or whatever, and like
I'm more talking about the bias, the scoring, whether you go first or go last. And sometimes someone already sets a high bar, or like they've already given out 9s, but then like, how can you give out a 10? It's they're on like this ridiculous between 8 and 10 scoring grade for the dunk contest. It sucks.
I would rather more objective things, right? Like dodgeball, right? You're either, you're in or
like
you're
that's
out
why the 3-point contest was cool. For the NBA,
yeah. I'd rather watch them play bocce ball. Like, I don't know, have them play and do things that like badminton. Let's do it. You know what I mean? Like, who wouldn't want to watch? Who wouldn't want to watch them play pickleball? Right? Like, why not? Like, have them play sports that they are not professionals at, or do things that their professional job like asks or requires them to do.
I think I would say hockey.
I will say that is,
but the risk of injury is too high for hockey.
I was going to say, like, even this stuff feels like a fast track to Penei Sewell has torn his ACL at the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, there is that fine line of like, let's get you to do something athletic, but don't hurt yourself. And like, even some of the relay race stuff, I'm like, I don't know if I like want my guy doing that right now.
Yeah.
On the flip side, it's easy to get hurt literally anywhere too. Like it's at some point there is a bit of overprotectiveness. I think we do. And especially when talking about, this kind of stuff, like there was that Tigers pitcher, Ryan, who busted up his hand playing Guitar Hero.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't forget Joel Zumaya. Like, if you're trying to,
are we buying that story?
A little bit too hard. Absolutely not.
Okay.
But like, people want to cancel the World Baseball Classic after who's his name got hurt celebrating. It was for the Mets. It was for the
Mets
Dominican
closer, Diaz.
Edwin Diaz like hurt himself celebrating. Like, I'm sorry, that's a freak accident. You can't cancel everything just because freak accidents happen.
I'll also say, like, one of the events was Madden, and we obviously weren't going to sit here and watch them play Madden for 2 hours, so they just did highlights. There's literally a platform where you can stream this sort of stuff. Let us watch.
Amazon,
let us watch live.
What are you doing? Get them on Twitch.
Get them on Twitch.
Well, I saw some numbers earlier about like TV revenue and how the NFL makes more money on Thursday over the course of a season than the NHL makes all year long, which is just wild, funny, crazy stuff. But like Amazon, you bought the rights for Thursday Night Football. You have a game streaming platform. Like, yeah, chop up the highlights and put it on the broadcast, but like, let us know when they're playing, and you know how many people would watch
that?
Right?
On Twitch on demand. I do want to point out, chat right now, Twitch chat is like finding other funny instances where guys are getting hurt, like Joseph Foria chasing his dog. But what's happening is people are remembering them almost at the same time as other people. So I've got 2 different people who posted at almost the same time of Joseph Foria chasing his dog, and then Nate Burleson trying to rescue a pizza. As moments where guys have gotten hurt just in everyday things.
Right. And both those things, well, Fourier admitted that chasing the dog wasn't a real thing.
Oh, okay.
I have questions about Nate Burleson, but
yeah. We know Stephen Tulloch got injured celebrating.
Sure, we did. We saw that happen. And was it Sam Martin who got hurt stepping on a shell? That one,
we can't forget.
That one might be real.
we can't forget the big one, Jason Pierre-Paul.
True.
What about the Chilean parasite?
Jeez.
9 years, and we come full circle to the Chilean parasite.
Has it been 9 years since that happened?
No. Like we talked about it on the podcast 9 years ago.
No, but yeah, like 2015.
It
right?
was the 2015 season, yeah. Because that was
offseason.
DeAndre Levy's trip down there, and standing on the top of the biplane and everything, and we won't mention who it was. It was a particular blogger in the Detroit sports sphere who's a giant piece of shit, saying that he had a source saying that the reason why DeAndre Levy wasn't playing to start the 2015 season was that he had caught some sort of parasite in Chile during his vacation. No one else ever reported it, but
kick puncher Gus Farrat is the guy who headbutted a wall and hurt himself. One of the Grammaticas definitely got hurt celebrating. I don't remember which one.
A kick, yeah.
Carlos Monterez was not on the beat at the time.
No, this was a blogger, not
a very infamous one. One we don't need to repeat. One who may or may not have written about the top 10 strip clubs in Detroit in just a sad, pathetic moment of his life.
I'd love to get Levy on the podcast. I don't know if I could connect with him, though. I don't really have a connection to him. All right, let me get back to some alerts. We're almost caught up here, and then we'll get back into the podcast. Damian Smith super chatted over on YouTube. £2 says, "Will Holmes ever let go of one of his draft picks?" I think it'll eventually happen. Probably this upcoming year. There are a couple that are free agents, right? Like Chase Lucas but he's an ERFA. I'm trying to remember.
Jamar Jefferson would be.
I know that's part of what we're going to be talking about this next segment with the particular quote about. I don't know if we have it in the third part, but definitely the every move we make and every move we don't make. Definitely something to talk about.
We waived Jamar, but I think we brought him back on the practice squad and then put him on practice squad IR.
I think so. Fairly. That sounds right.
I think that's right.
God, Quirky. I remember the wood axe. I remember the axe and was he the punter who hurt himself out there from Jack Del Rio's keep chopping wood axe?
Oh God. Yeah. I remember that. Ridiculous. Yeah. Izzy, thank you for the 34 months. Says mock draft season always sucks. Hey, I like you, Izzy. That's right. Everyone proudly already screen capping their PFF mocks and posting them on Twitter like it's good content. I can do it with my eyes closed.
Man, I haven't seen one of those yet, so I guess I've crafted a perfect bubble for myself.
Good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think at this point, I think I've also just lost interest in a lot of the mock drafts just because we know, like, where it comes to Brad Holmes, he's just going to take best talent regardless of what it is. So, I mean,
screw your mocks.
Yeah. Everyone's mocking a corner. How do you know he's going to take a corner? He doesn't do need. He doesn't do need.
Plus, free agency has to happen first. If they go out and sign Jalen Johnson, well, guess what? Your dumb mock draft in April or May or March. Probably not May.
Oh, no, Junk. I'll still honor your mock drafts on my stream. I'm just saying. Like,
just your mock means nothing right now. I'm sorry.
Sometimes it doesn't mean anything even after they re-sign a linebacker.
True.
So, I mean, you're screwed no matter what.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What I'm trying to say is, if you send me your mock, I'm going to hate you forever. Don't do it.
Forever?
And if you're the kind of person that posts a new mock to Twitter every single day, I will never respect you. It's your prerogative. If you want to do it, that's fine. I just won't respect you.
Anyway,
Anyway, MCDC Forever, thank you for the 9 months. Subscribe to the channel. Says Brad Holmes cooks. Feel a little bad for Dave, but the energy from that press conference was popping. We'll get into it. And don't feel bad for Dave. He didn't take it personally. Although he did.
Dave takes a lot
He
of
did
shots.
scramble to clear his name
Oh yeah.
quite hard, both on Twitter and in the press conference.
Yeah. But I like how like one article is supposed to be like, see? Right? It's like, oh, well, I'm sure he posted a lot of stuff in between then and there.
That's all right.
Yeah.
He sure did. Captain James Kirk, 45 bits, says, I'm going to personally believe that all of our sarcastic slander kept Ben from getting a job, just like we bullied Jeremy into stickers. We bullied NFL teams into not hiring Ben. You know what? If that's what you want to believe,
If that's how you sleep easy.
go for it. Congratulations. Good job. 100 bits from Joshua Mercer says, does anyone know a good adoption service to use for all these Twitch babies? I can't afford this many kids. Should have thought about that before. And we're caught up.
JC, I don't think that's true because if it was, he'd be on the Buffalo Bill staff for sure.
Nope. Not going down there.
Sean McDermott went on quite a bit of a tear after it came out that he had seen the light of Islam. Good winning streak.
All right, I want to talk about Brad Holmes. Let's do it.
Okay.
Yep. Too much else in this offseason is too sad.
And
with the Lions, but like just in general, like there's nothing for me to do until the Tigers pitchers and catchers report.
Junk Trunk, we are working on planning some sort of live event around the draft. I was originally under the impression that SB Nation was going to potentially fund something big. Seems like some of the wind is out of the sails there. So it might just be something that we have to do, and we'll see.
I've been meaning to talk to you about that. I just wanted last week to and this week a little bit to recover, but Jeremy and I are going to talk about it a little later this week. We do want to do something, and I do want to fly home for that something.
We will keep you all in the loop. And unfortunately, we have a condensed, fortunately, but unfortunately in this specific instance, we have a condensed timeline here, losing a month of potential planning time, but worth it. All right. Y'all ready? Ryan's ready. He's beatboxing.
I think I'm ready.
I was having fun.
Pride to Detroit POD cast. As we teased before, we'd like to talk about the general manager's press conference as the wrap up for every season. We are once again talking about Brad Holmes came out today on Monday with a lot of fire in his belly. Very fired up. If you watch the video, he spent something like, I believe, about 14 minutes, Jeremy, just raining fire down on it. People got called out. Plenty of quotables to talk about. So I'm going to hand the reins over to Jeremy, and me and Ryan will react to some of this because Jeremy, as we all like to point out, is there in the room. Yeah. It was so hot in there, it burned his mustache off. But there's some fascinating quotes from Brad Holmes, especially as we get into the season where it is now Brad Holmes to control everything. Free agency, the upcoming draft. This is where this man is going to be in his bag. And we're going to see what the Lions do under the purview of Brad Holmes.
Yeah. Well, first, I also want to say, like, that press conference was a man who's been wanting to have a press conference for the past 6 months. Like,
who's been yelling after every win.
He's been so eager to, like, do his victory lap after all the crap he took in 2023 after that draft. And I know he said at some point during this press conference that, like, I'm not trying to tell everyone I told you so. Brad, don't lie to us. You were trying to tell everybody I told you so for half of that press conference. Own it. It's fine. If you want to tell everyone I told you so after the job you've done, freaking do it. Spike that football, do your victory dance, call out people who doubted you. Why not? That's to me like that's the attitude this team has taken. And I'm for it. Like that to me, that was the most Dan Campbell press conference Brad Holmes has ever done. Like they are starting to meld personalities a little bit where they're just like, I'm going to scream, I'm going to yell, I'm going to call people out. If at some point Brad Holmes had said the word kneecaps, I would not have been surprised.
And like you said, though, that they're also mastering the tactic of taking the floor to themselves when a Q&A is to follow. Because one of the funnier moments, though, was Brad after his diatribe goes to exit stage left and laughs and comes back. But yeah, like I think that's officially canon now, by the way, Chris. I think that we need to stick with that story about Brad Holmes fire breathing.
Oh, breathing fire, spitting fire, whatever you want to do for it.
Jeremy's facial hair right off.
Just burned off the mustache. We should say that Brad Holmes just does it every year from here on out. It has taken years. It has made Jeremy look so much younger without the mustache.
But to go back really quick, like to me, all of that actually felt really deliberate because to me, Brad Holmes was walking to that stage with one goal in mind, like build as much confidence as you possibly can in this fan base. Because I think some people may have taken Dan Campbell's quote wrong when he said like that may have been our only shot.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
I will tell you from the past week. In national media, there's absolutely been people who have taken that kind of as very defeatist.
Right. And so Brad Holmes comes to the stage and what does he say? Best is yet to come, baby. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Here. There is some great showmanship between these two. I love it. We were just talking. I feel like, Ryan, to carry on the theme from the break, there is some wonderful mic work going on between these two as a duo.
Yeah. Could we get into let's talk about some of the big takeaways. Like
I want to talk about,
yeah. If you don't mind, I want to go first because this was something that I thought Brad came back to a couple of times. And it wasn't so much the comments about like the draft classes and position, blah, 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 all that stuff. Like, yeah, that stuff's funny for like a clip on Twitter. But something that really stood out to me was him multiple times coming back to not only citing, hey, look, it's every move we make and it's every move we don't make and the intentionality of that. And he didn't say it once. He didn't say it twice. Like he said it on like a few occasions where he came back to this idea of like, it's the moves we don't make too. And, I go back to his first offseason, right? Like he makes a huge decision on Kenny Golladay. Like that's a move the Lions don't make. And, I think with that too, he talked a lot about the 2021 draft class. Like he kept on going back to those guys because Jeremy, one of his overarching points, right, was, don't buy into the entertainment factor of, grading a draft in the immediate, aftermath of it taking place and he talked a lot too about, hey, like, yeah, you want, he kind of made it seem like I could win a draft in April. Like I could win every draft in April and May, but it's the drafts that you win in December, right?
Right.
Like those are the things that have led the Lions to this point. But I was just really, it kept like there was a bell that went off in my head every time he said like every move we don't make, and like part of me was like, he talking about like maybe the lack of moves they might make this offseason?
It's interesting you say that and that your mind went to all the way back to 2021 and some of the moves they didn't make back then or not signing Kenny Golladay. Because when he said that, there was two things that came into mind. Not making any moves at the trade deadline.
Oh yeah, that was a big one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then
yes,
I felt a little Jalen Carter in there too.
Ah, okay.
I can see that. I do feel like there was, because we definitely take it to the trade deadline. There was a lot of talk about, the Lions need to go all in. This is their chance. And, again, going back to the Dan Campbell quote, there was, and we've talked about this before, that there was a lot that is going to make it hard to get back to this place for the Detroit Lions. There's a lot of feeling that, you only get so many cracks at it, so you really have to go all out at times. But Brad Holmes even said it later in the press conference too. The goal has always been to build something to last. So year to year, there's not going to be this mortgaging of the future. I think remains the big takeaway from that quote. It's the biggest one of two I have, and that's always been the message from Brad Holmes. It's always been the MO for him in rebuilding the Detroit Lions, that they're going to take care of their own guys. They're not going to be selling the house on trading. I mean, they might move up in the draft, but it's not going to be some extreme stuff. There's not going to be, at least at this stage, a Rams F them picks kind of move to just strike while the iron is hot, even though I think some fans and media will push the Lions to that because they see that moment right in front of them.
Yep.
The other big thing is going to be the reality of what's going to happen. I think when he talks about the moves we don't make, you mentioned a little bit earlier about how many guys the Lions have to start considering for new contracts this offseason and next offseason. You have a big question looming with Jared Goff's extension. I think we are all in here about 90% certain he will get extended, but there, regardless of whether or not, there are going to be moves that are made and not made on certain players. I'm sure Jonah Jackson probably falls into that camp, whether there will be or will not be a move. There will be some cuts, I think, that will probably surprise Detroit Lions fans, but it's once again, a subtle, just trust me on this right now. I am building for something long. I'm trying to build for something long term. And as much as fans hope the next year is going to be the Super Bowl, I don't think there's going to be any move that is going to jeopardize 5 years down the road just to make sure 2024 brings the dreams home.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. Like, to me, the overarching theme of this entire press conference was, trust me, I got this. Mm-hmm. Because like part of it is like being the counterreaction to what Dan Campbell said a week ago. Part of it, I think he's trying to get ahead of the media, right? And I wrote about this for the newsletter today. Like the Lions are not going to have the shine on them that they did in 2023. They're not going to be the media darling that they were. They're not going to be the new hot and sexy team. There are going to be plenty of people say, this is why the Lions are going to regress in 2023 or 2024. I even wrote something like that already. But like the Packers, they're going to be the hot team, right? Jordan Love, with the way he finished the season, with the way, they were 6-2 down the stretch or whatever.
The Bears, number one pick. They're probably going to get Caleb Williams, right?
Yes. All these teams are suddenly going to be the hot team. And Brad Holmes literally goes like, don't listen to everybody. Don't listen to the entertainment media. Don't listen to this. This is what they said before about me, and I was right. They're going to say the same things again this year. Remember, I'm the one that was right. Like that, to me, that was what this entire press conference was about. Is like, I was right before. The media didn't know what they were talking about. The media's going to start talking trash about us again in about a month or two. Just trust. I might make a move that you don't agree with, that you don't see the long-term value in. Trust. I might make a draft pick. I might not pick a cornerback with the first-round pick. You might hate that. Trust. That's the entire message that Brad Holmes was saying. And it's fascinating. And it's true. And like, I think every Lions fan that watched that was like, yes, Brad Holmes. Like, he's got us under his spell. He's like, I believe you. Do whatever you want, Brad Holmes. I mean, we held a poll today, a Brad Holmes approval poll. Do you want to guess what the approval poll was? I'll give you a hint. It was 3 digits.
Oh, 99.9. Not bad.
That's right. Like, everyone has full buy-in on Brad Holmes right now, and that's why I think this press conference went over so well.
Yeah. Another one of my quick takeaways was him reasserting how much Dan Campbell means to everything that's going on here, because I have to imagine that kind of piggybacks on the point that Jeremy was making right there of, hey, look, like the daytime sports talk show is going to say this about Dan Campbell and all of the, missed opportunities and the bad decisions he made in the fourth quarter. Like, I'm sure that there's an element of Brad having to see all of this stuff or, be reminded of all this stuff from the NFC Championship game. And, you know, the question gets asked about like, yeah, like how surprised were you that Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are coming back? And it was like, yeah, they're great coaches. They're awesome. But I have all the trust and faith in Dan Campbell as well.
Yeah.
Right. And then it was the very next question was like, how much easier is free agency going to be, like having Ben Johnson and having Aaron Glenn? He's like, yeah, continuity. But again, it all starts with Dan. So as long as Dan is here, then I feel really good about whoever we bring in from a free agency standpoint. Like a lot of this too was Brad backing up his guy, right? Like, you know, because it can't only just be Brad up there saying like, oh man, like look at all my receipts. I'm just pulling all these out. Panay Sewell, and you know, everybody wanted us to draft a wide receiver earlier than we did because we knew we wanted Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, it wasn't just that. It was like I got Dan's back too. And like I have full faith. Like we don't get here with those players without Dan. So I thought that was like a real. It felt subtle because obviously the headlines are all, you know, Brad Holmes brought a, you know, a blowtorch to the, you know, media room in Allen Park. But like there was a lot of like Dan support here that I thought was calculated.
I think so too. It's definitely the week that Dan has had from either the people who want to just be ignorant of like fourth down decisions or just don't like the idea of the fourth down decisions that he made has gotten a little out of head of front of its skis. I've heard even some people asking if it's a fireable offense, which is nonsense, but that's the kind of heat that is in the kitchen right now after that kind of NFC championship, because the way that it is portrayed as it was right there for the Lions to take. It was right there for the Lions to take. I don't agree with that. I talked about it a lot on the post game. I had no problem with the fourth down decisions. I know there was stuff later in the game that there was probably I disagreed with, but it was too late in the game for me to really think about it too much. Dan's comments as well, like, and he is probably the largest face of the Detroit Lions. It's not a quarterback. It's not Brad Holmes. It's not St. Brown. Like Dan Campbell is the face of the Lions. And I think that support that you're talking about, Ryan, does go a long way. It does go a long way to sending a message that, hey, there's no problem here. Ownership likes what we're doing. We like Dan Campbell. And he is the reason for the season, for all of this.
The last thing I have on this is like, usually the end of season press conference from your general manager, you want to get kind of an overall preview of what the team is going to do. Get some hints about positions that they need, decisions that they have to make, like with Jared Goff's extension. We got almost none of that in this press conference, and some of it was Brad Holmes deflecting. He was asked, you know, what are your biggest positions of need? He basically punted on that question. He was asked, hey, doesn't your defense lack talent compared to the offense? And he said, I think our defense plays well together, and basically punted on that question. A lot of things he just never got asked about. But there was one thing he did say, and I loved what he said, that did kind of address some of the things that they're going to do in the offseason. It was with the offensive line. He was asked about Frank Ragnow and, you know, vaguely retirement talk, and he just said, you know what, we'll let Frank make whatever decision he wants to make, blah, 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 blah. But then he said, like, but that offensive line, that is so essential to everything that we do. We are not going to let that slide. We are not going to just assume that we're going to be as good as next year. Like, we are going to make sure that is not getting ignored this offseason. And that's huge because they have some big decisions, whether it is Frank Ragnow's future or Jonah Jackson's future or Graham Glasgow's future or, you know, the depth. I mean, they don't have a swing tackle right now signed to the roster. The fact that Brad Holmes knows, like, hey, we need to keep this strength a strength, that is huge because I'm right there with him. Like, they need to make sure they spend resources there, whether it's re-signing their own guys, whether it's drafting a guy in the future or doing a little bit of both. That was very reassuring to hear.
It's one thing him and Bob Quinn have in common.
Why would you do that?
What?
Well, I think
why did you turn into Christopher Walken there?
I don't know. People aren't all good or all bad, you know?
I do think, though, like, that is... There's going to be so much talk this offseason dominated about Jared Goff that, yeah, I think that is the bigger thing, Jeremy, is like The other one that needs to get paid is Penei Sewell. And that's like front and center. I think that's even a higher priority, to be honest. You have one of the best right tackles in football right now. And again, like going back to move we make and every move we don't make, and we're talking about, had plenty of questions about whether or not Jonah Jackson comes back with this team. You know, they draft Sorsdal last year. They're not really using him too much. But he's definitely seems to be in line for some work at some point as the developmental guy. They have a clarity of identity on how this entire team works, on that it starts with the offensive line, and they understand those guys are very hard to replace, but you do eventually have to have not contingency plans, but what am I thinking of? Succession plans in place if you want to keep a very good one right now. Like the Eagles right now trying to deal with Kelsey deciding to retire because their entire offense depends upon that line as well. Like that's your identity. You have to keep it in mind, and we'll have to see what happens with Ragnow. That is a big question. I do think he comes back, but like he's under 30. I get it. I get the pain is a lot, and there's some inoperable elements to his toes now as well. But like I don't think it's the time yet to see him step away.
And listen, like Sorsdal might be that plan, right? As Brad Holmes said today, and he's always said, like, I've got a plan. Like as a general manager, you have to plan 2-3 years ahead of time. And so maybe when they draft Sorsdal, it was like, he's not going to be a starter in 2023. Maybe he's not a starter in 2024, but we are going to try to get him ready for 2025. Very possible that's the trajectory he's on. And I think now that we have examples of year 3 breakout guys in Ifeatu Melifonwu and Derek Barnes, we can like suddenly look at this team's roster and be like, you know what? We buried this guy and thought he was going to be a special teamer forever or a practice squad forever. Let's wait and see. Let's look 3 years ahead. So now let's reevaluate the 2022 draft class and look at some of the guys that we thought, you know, we're 2 years in. This guy's going to be good. This guy's not going to be good. Jameson Williams might be a perfect example, right? A guy that didn't do a ton in his first 2 years, started to get better. Maybe he's going to be great in year 3. And so, again, I think this is another focus of the press conference today. It was Brad Holmes saying, like, listen, I got this. People didn't want to give Derek Barnes a chance, but I'm always thinking in the future. I'm always thinking down the line. You have to have one step in the, one foot in the present, 1 foot in the future. He's doing that. And so it should give us a little bit more clarity, or at least a little bit more leniency to some of this past draft classes looking towards the future and realizing maybe they have more resources than we thought because we're overlooking this guy. We're overlooking that guy.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back on the Pride of Detroit POD cast, we have a game show to do.
Oh boy, it really is the off season.
It is the off season. Ryan could not wait to get in his game shows. What are we playing, Ryan?
We are playing a game that I titled Fact or Fiction, Make a Prediction.
I think we've done Fact or Fiction before.
Yeah, but I added that little bit so that it would rhyme and be more catchy.
I see. So you're doing the 2 stanza. Okay. I like it. Fact or Fiction, Make a Prediction. Next on the Pride of Detroit POD cast. I couldn't find my mute button. I was holding that there.
All right. We got a bunch of more alerts here. Mostly
a bunch of more.
Mostly Nick the Greek dropping a lot of bits, but we'll get through them right now. 100 bits from Nick the Greek saying Brad Holmes with emergency telling Dave Burkett it was fantastic. The fact that he even acknowledged Monterez has me worried that he's troll feeding, and that was missing a reference to one of Kentley Platty's tweets. Either way, kiss Brad's ass, free press. It was good-natured, I think, mostly. 100 bits from Nick the Greek says, good to see Brad Holmes putting Morgan Cannon and Mike Payton in their place. Come on. What did they do? I'm not going to read your other one because singling
I was
out
like
one
playing this
specific
game with
person.
Nick where it's like, how many of these can we actually read? How many can we actually read?
Captain James Herc 50 bits says the picks are what got the team here, saying F those picks would be extremely out of character. Yeah, this is another thing that I don't want to give away my entire newsletter that's going to drop tomorrow, but one of the things that I thought is a good point that Chris brought up is like, if you're expecting now that the Lions are competitive for Brad Holmes to change, nope. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think you're going to see the Lions going on a spending spree in free agency. Like, that's not saying they won't spend big on one or two players like we saw them do it on a relatively smaller scale last year with Cam Sutton and Dave Montgomery and CJGJ, but I don't think he's going to mortgage the future for a 1 or 2 year run, right? It's keeping one foot in the present, 1 foot in the future. Like, there are going to be people begging again, like they did this year at the trade deadline, begging the Lions, please go out and trade for this guy. Go get Max Crosby for a first round pick.
There's even in free agency, there's definitely going to be a slurry of articles written, especially locally. Like we need to stop making this just a national media thing. I swear. But like Detroit local is going to be like, why aren't the Lions being active for big free agent name X?
Right.
It's going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. Like, I mean, for God's sakes, I don't think fans can stop talking about the Lions trying to get, like, please, Lions, go get Max Crosby. Trade your picks and go get Max Crosby kind of stuff. Not going to happen. Like that. And likewise, like, as much as I would have loved Jalen Johnson from the Bears, like, I don't think the Lions will be active in free agency, but it's not going to be going for the top guys out there.
That's never been their MO, right?
No. I mean,
I think there's an expectation that that's going to change just because of where the Lions are at. But I think Brad Holmes made clear today that, like, he's not going to change. And honestly, I don't think he should. I know you look around the league, you look at someone like the 49ers, right? Like they go out and they sell everything to get Christian McCaffrey, and they feel like that's the thing that's going to get them over the edge, or they trade for Chase Young and they think that's the thing that's going to get them over the edge. And maybe it is in their instance, but
they move heaven and earth to move up and take a quarterback that isn't on their roster anymore.
They did that too. And maybe that's why they needed to compensate, right? Is like they spent all those resources like, all right, well, shoot, now we've shortened our window maybe, and now we have to just make sure attack it. I don't know. But everything I've heard from Brad Holmes for the past 3 years has been, we're building for sustainability. We are not trying to open a window and then sneak in and then the window closes out.
So what you're saying is we are going to save a lot of money by not extending Jared Goff.
That's nope. Not saying that. Because I mean,
I do think that gets done here this summer. Like, people are.
I hope it gets done before then. I hope it gets done in the next month.
If it gets done, I think it'll get done before March. Or before that date in March.
The signing or the roster bonus.
Roster bonus. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that thing is
not that it's huge,
right.
But like it's something. Like it's not nothing.
Helps. It can help.
Yeah.
Captain James Kirk. Did I already read that one? Yep. Sweaty Doofus, 17 months subscribed to the channel, says I'm making my adult son change his name to Brad. I don't know if you can do that. I don't think you're allowed to do that.
I mean, if he tries coming home and you just keep calling him Brad, can he really stop you?
But he's an adult son, so how often is he coming back?
Good question.
Am I just the only? Never mind.
You can't stop me. Go ahead and try, Sweaty Doofus. I believe in you. Key Rock, thank you for the 10-month subscribed on Twitch. Darth Hippo, our good old friend Tony, who he was on the podcast once. 38 months subscribed to the channel. Xana, thank you for the follow on Twitch. And Nick the Greek, 100 more bits. All right, sure. It turns out Brad Holmes is the fan that cursed at Stafford's children. He also deliberately farted in Kelly Stafford's luxury box right before she arrived. Did she end up getting a box? Because I know the Lions didn't offer her one or whatever, and she was upset about that.
Oh my gosh.
We didn't talk about it, and I don't think we'll get back to the podcast at all about it. Is there still any kind of worry right now as far as like I know the main thing is tied him to Seattle, but I've had some people from Los Angeles on the Chargers asking me about him too in regards to Tanner Engstrand.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be the last moving piece for the Lions right now, that the Lions passing game coordinator Tanner Engstrand could still potentially take a coordinator job. Originally it was with New England was being tied to, the Seattle's still looking at him. I can't find any sources for what my guy was asking me about when it came to the Chargers. I think he's just wish casting there to add a bunch of shit around Jim Harbaugh, but he does seem like the last piece that hasn't settled right now.
Was there overlap with Tanner? Yeah, okay. He was at Michigan for a year. So
yeah.
I think that's where that might be coming from.
Yeah, okay.
But I haven't seen any suggestion that
I haven't
Tanner
seen that they're going to bring him in for an interview or anything like that.
But yeah, the Seattle job is the only one where he's been tagged as a potential candidate. I think there's a request out to interview him. I don't think the interview has taken place yet, or if it has, it's been under wraps.
Yeah.
The one other bit of Chargers news that I thought was really funny was that, remember, like it was earlier in the week in the Greg Roman stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is like Greg Roman's not going to be their OC.
Right. But initially it was, Greg Roman's going to be their OC. And then it was, I think it was yesterday that Rappaport was like, he's going to have quote unquote a prominent spot on the staff. And it's like,
yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
This is me being a bad Michigan fan, but did Harbaugh call plays?
No, I think that was Moore, right? Is that why Moore got the little head coach bump? I don't know. I'm not a Michigan fan. I've never been known to be one.
You said that with your gut.
Never
been one.
You watch 45 minutes of Brad Holmes and like it changes him, man. J-Dub says no.
Okay, there you
go. So that's it. That's it. J-Dub's yeah. Well, yeah, Moore was OC, but like who's calling plays? Connor Stallions? Was he calling plays? You know that you can get a
He was
cameo
calling
from
something.
him?
Can you?
Yeah, he's doing cameos.
I don't know why I acted surprised there in that moment.
I know,
that is the least surprising thing and we all know where all that money is going to, that he's earning too.
Man.
Right back into the program.
I was just paying legal fees?
It feels like this coaching cycle has had so much buzz about it that I've almost forgotten that there is a Super Bowl. It feels like this particular year there hasn't been as much buzz around the Super Bowl. Maybe it's because these are teams we've seen before. Maybe because the 49ers are boring.
In what spots are you looking though, Chris? Because I have not stopped hearing about how Taylor Swift is a psyop.
Well, to be fair, I am working primarily in a sports context and not in a
you work for Fox Sports.
Let's be abundantly clear on that front. I am aware, but let me tell you, most of the guys I work with on the weekend do not want to talk about Taylor Swift at all. Aggressively don't want to talk about Taylor Swift.
I just love how all the Swifties found Colin Cowherd.
Oh no.
He became their savior. That's the craziest twist to this entire thing.
Oh wow, Colin is about
what a brilliant move.
Stars.
What a brilliant
stars
move.
Attract stars.
What a brilliant move by him.
Calling out lonely, sad men.
Going straight for the incel line.
Members of the Cherry Tomato Club.
Stop it. Stop it. Oh,
Good
no.
Lord.
That's a reference that maybe one person watching is gonna get.
How sad though? Like you're watching commercials and the FanDuel commercials. I mean, Carl Weathers is in it. Like that's such a bummer. That's so sad.
Speaking of, hold up. Okay, now I remember the other stories I wanted to talk about. Yeah, the Carl Weathers thing is.
Also, I don't know if I'm like a bad Carl Weathers fan, but did not know he played football
I actually didn't
professionally.
either.
Yeah, I saw
Raiders.
that stuff.
Raiders?
Raiders, yeah, Raiders.
So it was like, right, the timeline's reacting in real time. And like I saw your tweet, Jeremy, where it's like I have like so much respect for guys who, what are like
You can drop into a comedy, like a serious actor their entire life, you drop them in a comedy and they're just like
Arrested Development.
Yeah.
You got
Happy Gilmore.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just absolutely nails it. There's a lot of like serious actors who just suck at comedy. It's an entirely different beast.
Right. It's not always Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in Airplane. You know what I mean? But
Yeah. Or Kevin Garnett.
Did you just call Uncut Gems a comedy?
On second viewing, it can be very funny.
Oh God. Yeah, no, it's true.
Can I? Yeah,
so
sorry.
Yeah, the one other thing about the Carl Weathers stuff was, as I'm seeing all that stuff, right? Like Jeremy says that, and then like I see somebody retweeting like him like in Raiders uniform, and I was like, what didn't Carl Weathers do? Like what dream, like how many dreams of kids did he live in his one lifetime?
He's also an astronaut and a fireman.
Jesus, man.
I'm kidding about both.
Okay.
I know.
And he entered the Tyson zone where I was like, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe, sure. Maybe he did go up to space, the ISS. Who knows? I have two gambling stories I want to get by Ryan, though.
Uh-oh.
First off, Isaiah Rodgers, I heard the sound of him. I forget who was it, Real Sports he sat down with someone. Did you hear his quote? Like that he was like, they were asking him, was like, you were placing 100 like bets at a time on a game. It was like, yeah, but it's okay because I was placing like 20. It was okay because like they were like they're only like $25, $50. But the big thing for him was like, yeah, but it's okay because they were all like these crazy leg parlays, just trying to hit really big.
So what's your question?
I just your reaction to that. But if you don't like that question, I do want to ask you about the worst gambler fantasy football player ever from the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay.
Did you see this story? First off, I do need to ask you, do Jaguars plus FanDuel, does that jog your memory at all about this story? Or am I about to?
No. It was the guy who worked for the Jaguars that
Former
was
employee.
embezzling a bunch of money and gambling it.
Lost $20 million on daily fantasy.
Yeah.
Called in the ESPN article the worst gambler of all time. The biggest loser ever on FanDuel.
A tough distinction to carry around with you, right? Like that feels like an anchor that you're dragging the rest of your life. So that's sad. But is that sadder than the Jacksonville Jaguars trying to ask FanDuel for the $20 million back?
That's the more sad part. That is the more sad part. That, like, I get it. Maybe gambling should probably do know your customer and AML stuff with this kind of money throwing around, with this kind of legalization where they are. But you're going up to the house asking for money that has already been taken and invested somewhere else. I am sorry. That money ain't there. That ain't your money no more.
Yeah.
And maybe there's some repercussions down the road if FanDuel wants any kind of sponsorship stuff with FanDuel, but I think FanDuel, I'm sorry, man, that's the casino.
What if 16 million of that was placed on a game that changed venues halfway through the week?
Dude, come on. That's outrageous, though. Like, I have a legitimate gripe. Like, and to have the wherewithal and the stones to, in chat, respond to me and say, that doesn't have any impact on the game. Or it doesn't impact the outcome of the game where it's played? That doesn't then why do college football games do neutral venues? Why do some teams have
I
roofs on their stadium? Like, don't talk to me that way. Barstool
I saw recently
sports chat.
some guy complaining, and first of all, this is a ridiculous bet to even be on the table. But he's complaining that some sports betting thing categorized the, like, you can bet on the kind of shot that this person is going to make first, and he made a layup. He bet on him making a layup first, and like it's a very clear shot of the guy making a layup, and they're like, no, it was a 2-foot hook shot or something, and like he just like complained about it on Twitter, and eventually actually won it. But I'm just like, okay, this
oh god,
dude. But think
What are you
about
betting
like
on?
all the length. Well, yeah, okay, outrageous stuff, right? But the lengths that you have to go to because they don't have to give you the money.
they don't. They don't. Like all these people on Twitter will complain to these to like DraftKings and be like, you owe it to your community. Fuck the community. You're not here to build a fucking community.
Dude, when I saw everybody complaining about Aaron Rodgers props that they lost because his Achilles popped,
They ain't refunding shit.
They did refund that stuff, and I was like, "How dare you? What kind of lesson are you? What kind of precedent are you setting?"
There's a bookmaker at Stardust right now being like, "What the fuck? You are disrespecting the entire profession."
Tough, maybe month for problem gamblers though.
Well, did you see the actually, speaking of people complaining on Twitter, since I know some of the actual professional bettors in Vegas over sports, how many of them got upset this week at the Tom Brady Bet MGM ad?
What? Why?
Because the ad is, and maybe you can take this to heart, Ryan. The ad is basically BetMGM is making gambling available to everyone except you, Tom Brady. You've won too much. You win too much, Tom Brady, so you can't gamble on sports. And that is among sharps being taken as like a code or a shot at those guys who can't gamble in the big sports books on the strip, that they're not allowed in the door.
Huh. So
that the only money that the books want is dumb money.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
they do, and they put it in your pocket. So,
yeah. So I tell people, like I was telling someone else the other day, it's like you're gambling on that app right now. It just means you're a valuable customer.
Well, as long as you're losing on that app, though, right?
At an acceptable rate. Like it's that fine line between like you're winning and you're getting comped at a casino versus you're winning and you're being shown the door.
Yeah. Well, two other problem gamblers since we last recorded. Kayshon Boutte. Did you hear about him?
Oh, man. Wow, did I hear about him?
Jeremy, did you hear about this?
Is this the guy that placed
8,900 bets in 13 months?
Yeah. Is that the guy who had someone go to a bookie and like basically tell him he had insider information? Is this the LSU guy or whatever?
Oh,
yes.
No. That's the Alabama baseball coach.
Oh, yeah.
Alabama was playing LSU. Yeah. So
okay.
that's
right.
That's that.
And it just like completely gave himself up, saying like, "Listen, this is the coach. He says this guy isn't pitching. I have this inside information. Let me illegally bet on this."
Dude, he said to the chat, he said, "If you knew what I knew."
Right. Yeah. That's
what? If you knew what I knew, what? Like that. I mean, so it was, also it was hammer ... like the line, right?
Yeah.
The pitcher is out for sure. Let me know when I can tell LSU, hurry. Like, oh man, And I think another one of the things he said was like, "This one's for sure going to win." Why? What do
Oh,
you
that reminds me of two other things from the Isaiah Rodgers interview. I'm sorry to go back to this. First off, he was saying he was placing bets for family members and friends who were in Florida where it wasn't legal. Like, just throwing that out there.
Is that a defense or an admission?
That might be an admission that some interstate laws are being broken, actually.
Right.
The other one was that, and this was the insane one. He was asked about that $1,000 bet that was placed from his account on his teammate Jonathan Taylor, which is what got him the year-long suspension from the NFL, because that was a gamble on an NFL game. He said that that wasn't him. He was on the field. Someone else was using his account. Someone else was using his sportsbook app gambling account, Ryan.
Interesting. Wonder who it was that was using it.
Isaiah Rodgers.
Sounds about right.
Oh boy. The Kayshon Boutte stuff though is wild to me because it was 8,900 bets in 13 months and he was not 21 years old. So
he's gonna have a problem.
Oops.
That's fraud.
Seems bad.
Don't gamble if you're underage.
Yeah.
No, you could have just stopped after those first two words.
It does feel like,
yeah,
especially the Jaguars thing, but the amount of gambling news out this week, I do wonder at some point when these leagues...
The Super Bowl is in Vegas.
I know, the Super Bowl's in Vegas. I've got to wonder at some point the NFL's like, man, we really love this money we are getting from the books. But man, there are some problems cropping up. Like the NFL wanted the best of both worlds. They wanted all this sportsbook money, but they don't want any of the problems that comes with it, which includes some of your players are problem gamblers.
Oops.
Which includes some of your employees are problem gamblers and maybe embezzling funds. That Jaguars employee, Ryan, do you see his name on FanDuel's parlay picker?
Oof.
Sucker.
Real quick, last thing on gambling, I made a New Year's resolution. Mine is that God gave me 2 legs, so that's as big as my parlays can get from now on.
You know what those legs also have are kneecaps. You want to protect those.
Yeah, I will.
Trying to decide whether I'm proud of you for that or I wish you had gone further.
Oh, are you saying you wish I would have lost one of my legs in my car accident so I would not
wow!
place any parlays?
Wow!
Is that what you're saying?
That is some mental gymnastics to take the high road.
I do want to say, as much as I have hated on parlays around Ryan did give me a 3-leg NBA parlay when I was last in Vegas, like right before the pandemic, and it made me good money.
I help my people.
Especially NBA, because I know 2 things about gambling on the NBA. Jack and shit. And Jack just left town.
Chad, I didn't actually say that. Ryan just...
Yeah, I don't gamble a ton, Dragon Lion. I have these premonitions every year or so where I place like one bet that I feel super confident on, and I will always win them. But then like the rest of the way, I'm just not. I don't gamble a lot.
Yeah, we can't keep talking about it because there's a Red Wings bet that I need to make, like, with the assistance of Genesis Credit Union.
That doesn't sound good.
Why?
I need to get my credit union involved in this bet I'm about to make.
I have a great investment opportunity.
No, stop it. I've made a decision on how I feel about your
It's a
resolution.
high-yield savings
it's
account?
not enough.
I could tell you charge me 20% interest. That's fine. I got you covered. Just front me this. I grow closer and closer to Adam Sandler's character in Uncut Gems by the day.
That's not good.
Speaking of kneecaps and legs,
just why don't you go to your credit union and go, if you knew what I knew.
Oh man. I thought you were gonna say go to my credit union like I'm Chiefsaholic. No. Don't do that.
I'm not suggesting you rob a bank. No.
credit union, excuse you.
Don't.
I don't know if I want to tell the bet because I don't want you guys to move the line. That's overestimating how much power I have. It's over 92.5 points
for the season.
And right now they're at 58 and they have 32 games remaining. So they would have to go 16, 13, and 3. Essentially go 500 over the course of the rest of the season, and it's minus 105. It's almost even money. They can't go 500 down the stretch for a team that might be trying to find their way into the playoffs and make a move at the deadline. They're not going to win 16 games and lose 16 games, 3 of them just so being in overtime.
They are exactly 6-2-2 in the last 10.
I don't know. And I wanted to stop me because there's more, and I don't. Third segment, maybe.
That seems like the best cure for this. Is third
let me read the alerts.
Okay, yeah, you do that.
Yeah.
Jay Reverie, 17 months subscribed to the channel, says 17 months, and it's only going to get better. I like the way you did that. Nick the Greek, another 100 bits, says Brad Holmes gave Kirby Joseph secret instructions to explode TJ Hawkinson's knee. Another 100 bits from Nick the Greek says still can't get over the fact that Brad decided to call out the local media. Dave Burkett has gotten a free ride for too long. He's fine.
Dave is in fact a very nice person.
He's super
and
nice.
he's really good at his job too.
Yeah. And here's the thing, he doesn't write a lot of opinion columns, so for Brad to call him out specifically is silly. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Chris was saying the local media gets a little bit of a pass here, and I don't necessarily believe that to be true, but the people that you should respect and trust are not the columnists. To me, the columnists are, I don't like columnists. And I'm not saying as people, they're fine as people. I don't like reading columnists because in general, it's not beat writers who are doing that. It's just columnists. It's just people who are paid to give their opinion, whether it's informed or not. The most informed people in the media are the beat writers. So you should be following their lead, not the columnists. Unfortunately, the way this media works is that beat writers don't have enough time to write columns, so they have separate people who write columns. And those people are the exact opposite of who should be writing the columns.
I go figure.
Right.
What happens when the people with the no can't do that work for you because they're doing the other important work for you because they're good at, writing stories and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So what happens? Work gets outsourced.
If you're looking for good opinions, mailbags are good because that's something that beat writers do, and they occasionally give their opinions there. Whereas bigger sort of things, they don't tend to give a ton of opinions because that's the duty of the columnist. And the columnists are the ones you shouldn't trust. Don't trust columnists.
This is what Jeremy was doing. This is
shitting again on people who actually daring to have opinions about sports rather than
the people.
No, columnists cover the sports too. We need to stop doing this. We need to stop just finding out enemies just because you happen to disagree with people, that they are somehow villains in all of this. Let's be adults. Let's be adults.
Yeah,
People have opinions.
that's fine.
but like Jeremy was saying, like they're not bad people. Like they're good people. They just have bad opinions.
That's not a crime.
I didn't say it was.
You seem to use that you are implying it.
No,
Damn well.
I'm implying. The only thing I'm implying is that
you
when
imply that they don't know what
you
the
were
fuck
just
they're talking
outside
about.
of the room. You don't know what I was implying.
But I've heard these things from you
Yes.
before.
They aren't in the room.
That's the thing. It's not that they're like. It would
This
be
isn't
one
Neil
thing if you're
Rule.
saying, what? Sorry, what? But like it. Not everyone. First off, not everyone has the same access, Jeremy. It's all,
Yes,
and
I
never.
agree.
Yeah. But access also doesn't empower you to be like, you create a massive distrust between people by saying, if you don't have the access, you're not allowed to comment. That is a massive, that has always been a massive failing of every system in every walk of life anywhere. That simply because, you just simply don't, that is a downside of a lot of things. You can, it's not a crime to call out bad takes either. I guess my thing is that you're not countering it with your own opinion. Sometimes it's always just been that like, those people just don't know what they're talking about. The idea of information being an access thing is just, I find that pernicious. I find that utterly pernicious. I think people should be, the fun of sports is that people get to say whatever the fuck they want to say.
Yeah. I'm not saying these people can't say what they said. I'm saying as a consumer of media, you should not be listening to these people as much as you should be listening to the people that are on the beat every single day. Because they do have a more informed opinion. When you're a columnist at a newspaper, a sports columnist, you are a columnist for every single sport. You simply don't have the bandwidth to go in depth on a single sport like the beat writer of that team does.
But I also think that sometimes beat writers get way too close for comfort. Sometimes they get way too close on a particular subject, and it makes them incapable of viewing things from farther out, especially in the context of something like the NFL, that you can't do comparative between teams. Sometimes even you're just so close in that sometimes you miss the forest because you're staring at one tree. What did I do?
We just what is it, like 2 years? That's a long running joke of like that.
I keep
idiom,
getting that analogy
that
wrong.
Idiom. Yeah, we don't. Yeah.
No, I know. What's the one I stumble over? I stumble over one of those two. It's not.
That's all right. Earlier, instead of saying continuity, I said continuity. I can't even say it again because it's not a word. But
yeah, I didn't know what you were trying to say there.
Continuity.
Continuity or something.
Yeah, that's what I said for continuity.
I will remember when I do stumble on it, and I will report back because it is a very funny thing. I cannot, for the life of me, say it, and it's a turn of phrase that is always said, and I always get the words backwards.
I could care less.
No,
is like the one that triggers me the most.
That's.
Personally,
how much less could you care then, huh? Yeah.
All right, let me finish out these alerts and then we'll get to the game show here.
Continue.
Last one. Sorry, Chris. 100 bits from Nick the Greek says Brad Holmes called out Chris Perfett for being unprepared and mispronouncing players' names, but complimented him for being furry forward and driving a Subaru.
I didn't realize it was furries now. I was told, you know what? I'm not even going to say the other thing I was told. Speaking of which, didn't the Tigers just cut the guy who was a furry?
What?
Yeah, and Nick Matten was DFA'd, and I guess he was a furry. And I'm probably mispronouncing his name too.
Not gonna yuck anyone's yum.
Is that the theme of this podcast?
Yeah.
Yuck the yum.
I don't know why, but when you said that, it made me want hibachi. Like I want yum yum sauce now.
They were serving hibachi at the San Francisco game, but the line was incredibly long, and I was told it was worth it, and I didn't wait.
I made sushi at home on Sunday, and best decision of my life. Getting better at it.
You got a nice little sushi roller thingy. I
do. I actually, this is my first time trying to make, I didn't get it down well because stuff kept slipping out, but I was trying to do the reverse style roll with like the seaweed on the inside, the rice on the outside. But like, and that came out fine, but like everything in it kept like slipping out. I was like making Philly rolls, salmon, cucumber, avocado, and cream cheese, and I could not keep the cucumber inside. But nice experiment at least.
It seems like
I've rolled my own sushi before.
that seems
I've
so
done it
labor
multiple
intensive.
occasions. It is like
It is,
so
yes.
worth it to pay somebody who knows how to do it.
That's what I was
Yes,
gonna say. It's like-
100%.
Also to take care of the rice too.
Yeah.
Like the rice is such a big thing to get right.
I would rather learn how to change my own oil in my car before I ever roll another sushi roll, because I know that I can't do it as well as the person behind the counter can, and I would pay a huge premium. And that's the one thing that the sushi industry should not know.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think in the last calendar year, I have learned the two things you just said: changing oil and rolling sushi.
You're completely self-sufficient. You can live forever.
Yeah. At least until the oceans boil.
I'm not even close to learning either of those things, and have no desire to. I'm willing to go broke if I have to, paying people to do those things for me.
Well, seeing the prices at Jiffy Lube, you might.
Oh boy, is this boomer car talk?
Look, I am the brand new owner of a 2024 Crosstrek, and I have not shut the fuck up about it since I bought it on Wednesday.
Look at this.
Let me tell you, I came to the revelation when I woke up on Friday that this car is pretty much an incredibly expensive way to cheer myself up after the Lions lost in the NFC Championship.
This is your
it's worth
midlife. Your midlife crisis car is a Subaru.
Yeah. A red Subaru.
But hey, look at us. 2 new car owners.
I'm driving my midlife crisis right now.
What'd you buy? What did you buy? I didn't realize you bought something, Jeremy.
Paid $10 for a car.
Except you haven't paid up on it.
It's kind of tied up in some bets.
What? Wait, what?
God, you're placing down collateral?
I gave Ryan my car.
The guy who sold it to me should have done some background research.
What'd you get, Jeremy?
I got a 2023 or 24 Prius. In October.
Nice.
What? Wait, what you got to say, Ryan? What do you got to say? Say it.
You can take the boy out of Cali, but you can't take the Cali out of the boy.
I feel like I could say it now, but probably a week ago I could not have said it.
Killer Cornbread, I was really on the fence about getting a Chevrolet Equinox, but I'm sorry, Chevrolet has kind of got that.
No, can't say that. My dad.
I know.
Yeah, you're not allowed to talk
I know
bad.
I'm not allowed to. I know.
Yeah.
So I'm not the one talking bad about it. I'm saying other people are talking bad about it.
Bob Seger wrote a song about it.
And you know what they say about Ford? Fix it again, Tony. Dale, that's a Fiat.
Oh, that's
Is
great.
that King of the Hill?
Yeah,
that was King of the Hill. Yeah.
Jeremy, how do you start that fancy little Prius of yours?
Oh, I see where this is going.
Very carefully.
Here's the thing that was so frustrating about last week. I knew I'd lost my key. I wasn't panicked about it because Toyota has an app that allows you to have a quote-unquote virtual key to unlock your car, to start your car. And so I'm like, oh, when I'm flying back, I'm not even worried about it. I'm like, I'll get home. I'll be able to drive it home. I'll be able to go to the dealership and say, hey, I need a new pair of keys. We're fine. Apparently, there is an anti-theft measure that the virtual key will get you in the car. It'll get you to start the car. But the second you turn the ignition, or not the ignition, the second you shift it into any gear, car goes off. So I would sit in my car. I'd turn the engine on. Be like, all right, I'm ready to go home. Nope. So I had to get it towed. All the way to the dealership after spending all freaking day in the air or in the Chicago airport.
I was going to say, you sound
Yes.
You had a nightmare in the Chicago. You had a John Hughes movie. How long you were stuck in O'Hare?
Yeah, it was not good. people are asking, what's the point in the virtual key then? I don't have an answer for you.
It
Like-
lost its meaning to you.
Like, I think one of the cool features is that, okay, there's two things that are cool about it. One is that if you forget to lock your car, you can lock your car. I did that. In fact, I was driving my mom's car when I went to the Tampa Bay game, and I forgot to lock her car. And she got a notification on her phone. She's like, "Did you forget to lock my car?" I'm like, "I think I did." And she's like, "Okay, it's cool. I got it." She is at home. Like, she is way far away. She can lock the car. Kind of cool. And then I think the starting the car thing, I think that's just like a get the car warm while you're in the house type of thing. Like, it's in the winter, start the car, it heats up, you walk in, and it's warm when you get in.
Yeah.
Sweaty doofus, Chris living his best. Like, honestly, I am with this car. Like, the last car I had was not taken care of before I got it, and I have gone out of my way. I've got a full cover for the car and seat covers, and I'm not eating in it and everything. Like, I'm getting OCD about protecting this thing. Because the first day I had it, there was heavy rain that night, and a branch came down on top of it.
Oh, shit.
Thankfully, it was like one of those like slow stress, so there was no dent. There is an incredibly fine hairline, like teeny little fucking. I can't even take a picture of the scratch. It's that fine. And I'm debating yelling at my property manager about it because that tree was overgrown. But I'm probably just going to ask for it to get buffed out of the service. Anyway.
People are asking if anyone has found my key. Nope. As of 1 hour and 43 minutes ago, it is still in the Harvey Milk Terminal in San Francisco. Same spot it's been for a week and a half.
Nobody at the terminal can help you find it or like anything. Like
I called the lost and found.
It's got to be wedged between a cushion if no one's finding it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy, right? Like you think of all places, an airport and their security would just be like sweeping that place inch to inch to just make sure there isn't any device or whatever. No, and I called Lost and Found there. I emailed Lost and Found there with a screenshot of like, here it is. Nothing.
Insane.
It's gonna sit there forever.
You're gonna have to go back to San Francisco,
right? I'm gonna have to find an excuse to go back there.
Go back there for the 49ers Super Bowl parade.
Chiefs are winning. I don't know what you're talking about. Chiefs are winning, and Taylor Swift's going to give Travis Kelce a big old kiss, and they're both going to say, vote for Joe Biden.
Oh, I thought they were both going to get the booster when they were on the field.
That too.
They're just like going to cross arms. You know how like some people eat foods together? They're going to cross arms and give each other a shot.
Arm jab.
All right. Let's back into it. Game show time.
Yeah. We've gone on long enough here. Ruby's waking up from his nap. I can see behind me, so he's gonna want to play and eat soon, and I kind of want to eat.
By the way, I love that you called it a jab like you're British.
Who are you talking to? Me?
I don't know. I thought Chris called it a jab. Did
no,
you
I
call
didn't
it a
call
jab
it
too?
A jab. Yeah. No. Ryan, I thought Ryan. I didn't call it a jab. Did I call it a jab?
I did.
All right.
I just didn't know if Chris said it too.
I did not.
Yeah, it's fine.
Why are you so British?
I just tried to do a British accent in my head, and I was like, I can't do it.
Abort.
I was like, it's going to come out sounding like Christopher Walken.
Don't you want to do it for Dan Pesk, though?
No.
No.
All right. Sorry, Dan.
Dude, love Dan. Big Dan guy.
Hell yeah, Dan.
I don't want to embarrass myself anymore.
Let's go.
Anymore.
I don't even want to be around anymore.
Pride of Detroit POD cast, and now it's time for game time. I feel like we need some imaging for all the games we do when Ryan brings into us a game to play. It's very sports talk radio-y. I love it. Nothing screams the off season is upon us than Ryan being like, let me put some words together and make a game. And the game this week, Ryan, is
Fact or fiction, make a prediction. It's a little wordy. We can workshop it.
No, it's enhanced. I like it. It used to be fact or fiction, and now you have enhanced it. You've got a subtitle.
Yeah, like I want to take out of you too. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't want just, truth or dare here. Like I want you to act on it. So
That's right. All right. Well, I hand over the keys of this podcast. Sorry, Jeremy. Over to Ryan to lead us through the game.
yeah, with these keys, I can open the door to the studio. I can turn on the set, and we can actually roll with this thing. So, all right. First off, Brad Holmes' comment that this isn't a one-off Cinderella season. His quote, "Don't get spooked this spring to think we can't sustain this thing." Fact or fiction? And I'd like you to make a prediction. Chris, you want to go first?
Oh, you're being cruel making me go first. Because I think the problem is, and I'll tell you fact or fiction and the prediction at the same time here, but like let me walk through this for myself. Because what's the level of Cinderella we're talking about? Getting to an NFC championship game is quite difficult. We cannot understate that. Like, absolutely cannot. You can have playoff wins in the future. And I'd like to ask you, Ryan, or maybe ask Jeremy, like, what are we saying is the Cinderella? Is that they won 2 playoff games, they made it to an NFC championship, they were 30 minutes away from going to Las Vegas? Or is it that we're going to continue to have success in the playoffs, regardless of what that playoff success looks like? Because unfortunately, at the end of the day, every season, the playoffs, I told this to Lions fans after the game, playoffs are cruel, Jack. Playoffs are real cruel because they can end at any point, and it doesn't matter how good you were in the season. Just look at the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens probably should have been like the Lions in the Super Bowl, and they put up their season lowest offensive performance and completely got away from the run game. Like, things happen in playoff games. But I'm going to say fact, though. I think they can. I think they can get back here. I think next year, the floor is a playoff win, but not NFC championship. There's going to be more competition. It's going to be tougher. And as long as the Lions keep, and the Lions got some luck to keep hosting games, Jeremy, especially with what the Packers did to the Dallas Cowboys. Like, they're going to have to learn how to win on the road next year.
There was one thing that Jeremy said last week during the break, I think, where we were talking about the accolades or the accomplishments that were hung this season by the Lions, right? Like the 30 years not hosting a playoff game and then winning another playoff game. Like, that makes it a Cinderella season in a vacuum, right? A Cinderella season next year would then be a Super Bowl win, right? Like, right. It seems like the room for Cinderella isn't really much room at all.
It's a tall bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
like
yeah, sorry, go on, Ryan.
I was just gonna say that carriage can turn to a pumpkin real quick. But Jeremy, like, fact or fiction, and then make a prediction.
Well, okay, so he's not saying like we're going to have a Cinderella story again next year. He's just saying like this was not, I'm trying to think of like an NCAA team that had one good run. Like
George Mason.
That's, yeah, exactly. This isn't a George
Florida
Mason
Gulf
situation,
Coast, right?
Yeah. Where they make it down to the Final Four and then you never hear from again, right? So this is fact. I mean, this team is going to be competitive for the foreseeable future. I don't think there's any question about it. One of the youngest rosters in football, and they got as far as they were able to. They have a quarterback that they are comfortable with, that can play at a high level. They have 2 people in leadership positions that have only proven themselves extremely capable of what they're doing in Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. And like Brad Holmes was saying, like, I don't care what happens with the. I mean, he didn't straight up say this, but he implied it. Like, I don't care that much about our coordinators leaving because I'm that confident in Dan Campbell. And that's where I'm at with Dan Campbell. And that's where I'm at with Brad Holmes. There's a reason these guys have a 99 and 100% approval rate in Detroit. They've done everything right since they've stepped in this building. So, absolutely buying this. Now, make a prediction. All right. The Lions win the division again and win a playoff game again. They get at least to the divisional round next year.
We're on the same prediction. Yeah.
I dig it. All right. So the next topic. This was an interesting question that was brought up during Brad Holmes' presser, but it was this idea that, do you view a discrepancy between the level of talent on the defense and on the offense? And Brad Holmes came back and said there's a lot of guys on defense with a lot of upside and a lot of potential. I'll go reverse Uno back to Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
Fact or fiction that there are a lot of guys on defense with upside and a lot of potential, or is it fiction? And then make a prediction.
I'm going to say fiction because he seemed to be suggesting that, like, no, they're about equal in talent, and it's not true. I get what he's trying to say, like the youth on the defense, there's a lot more youth on the defense, and so, yeah, there is potential on that side of the ball, but the reason the offense has been so good is because they have proven veterans on the offensive line. Like, that's something that Brad Holmes kind of walked into a little bit, right? Frank Ragnow was there, Taylor Decker was there, Jonah Jackson was there, there were guys there, there was a foundation there, so it makes sense that side of the ball turned around on a dime. That side of the ball was already good once you got the right coaches in place and a couple more pieces. Defensively, I don't see a lot of those core pieces yet. There are some players, we talked about them before, that could develop into those guys. And yes, I agree with Brad that there are some potential of those. The upside is bigger than how they've performed. Without adding any additional players, the defense could get better. But it's not there yet. And so I guess my prediction is this is still not going to be a top 10 defense in 2024.
I also am going to say fiction because I think we went into this season looking for upside on some of those guys on defense and just quite honestly didn't get them. Like, I know injuries hampered some of that, but even when healthy, I don't know how much I could say Jerry Jacobs contributed to this team, and Tracy Walker has basically stopped being a starter. Like, I think the upside came in guys who were the linebackers, specifically Derek Barnes, Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone. All those guys played phenomenally well, but when we're talking about the defensive line, there were some guys who were still struggling to pull some weight out there, and there's definitely, of the DBs, that's the whole story, and we don't need to keep revisiting it over and over. The talent discrepancy is pretty big. I'm sorry, it's fiction. That said, if I'm going to make a prediction on this, I'm going to take it to the draft, and I'm going to say that it's not going to be the position first off the board for the Lions isn't going to be the position people think that it's going to be, because ultimately I think there's still some need up front as well. And I'm going to say my prediction is that in the draft among young talents, the defensive line is going to be addressed before the defensive backs. Because I think that's kind of the other side of the story of what happened this year with the defense. We understood, like, getting a CB1 in this league has become very hard. We are no longer in those golden ages, the 2010s, where you had Richard Shervin and Revis Island out there. You had this fantastic CB talent. It's very hard to hit on those guys. How much of us was talking about Sauce Gardner this year after that rookie year he had? The point is that Aaron Glenn, and what I've tried to defend Aaron Glenn on, is that he's at least figured out that if you can't have the corners that can lock down, you can rush the hell out of the guy. And they don't have anyone out there to really aid Aiden Hutchinson right now on a large level. And Aiden Hutchinson is fine, but he's like not getting home because he doesn't have another edge out there, and he's not getting as much DT help unless Aleem McNeil is healthy and playing very well. So I think they're going to address the D line before they address DBs, at least when it comes to draft capital.
It's interesting. You kind of touched on an interesting point there because while Brad Holmes might be focusing on like the youth movement on the defense, like Iffy is obviously a guy to be very optimistic about the future. Jack Campbell, Aiden Hutchinson, Ali McNeil, Josh Pascal, all these guys, all these young players are up and coming and you're hopeful for them. Derek Barnes is in that conversation as well. I feel like the 2023 season was just as defined defensively about underwhelming players that had high expectations, about your Cam Suttons, about your Charles Harris's, Romeo Okwara, Julian Okwara, all these guys that were
invested 3 years. Lions have invested 3 years into Cam Sutton, and they got to figure something out with that.
Yeah, and I think he'll get better, but there's so many guys who went into the season with prominent roles who ended up like completely. Jerry Jacobs is included in that too. Like these guys that are just like they expected to lean on these guys, and they fell off a cliff, and so there has to be a big shakeup in terms of your overall talent there. You have to get rid of Julian Okwara and Romeo Okwara and Charles Harris, and you have to find replacements for those guys. And it's not going to be easy to do in one offseason.
And I think, look, I'll give some credit to Kindle Vildor playing out of his mind this year to get into that position. I know sometimes some of the plays Vildor was involved in was rough. Like, he's definitely shown you can at least be a depth part, but I'll throw one more name on there, Jeremy. I don't know if Vildor sustains it is my main point, but I'll throw one more onto that pile of names there, Jeremy, that we kind of expected things from. And I think he played well, but Kirby Joseph is kind of starting to show you he's a bit of a liability when it comes to penalties.
He's very much a boomer bust player too.
There is some times where I've seen Kirby Joseph take a penalty that he does not need to be taking. And a note to grow on for the offseason, I guess.
Yeah. Kirby's an interesting player, though, just because how long he's been playing the safety position is relatively short. And that's the interesting thing about some of the players that the Lions, and specifically Brad, kind of took risks on, right? Like, if he fits that to a T, right? Like, he was a long, lanky corner. Now he's a safety, And then even with Derek Barnes, right? Edge rusher to linebacker. Like Brad Holmes, 100% unafraid to draft a guy who might be a tweener, or a guy who maybe underwent a position change, or even James Houston, who has relatively played very little football in his career. Right. But Brad talked about that all throughout his press conference today, right? Like, he talked so much about intangibles, and that was obviously one of the big takeaways from his press conference. All right, the next Brad Holmes comment. I'm going to jump to this one because I'm going to be interested to see how you guys think on this. But fact or fiction, I'll go Uno reverse back to Chris. There's no one specific area of the team that needs to be addressed in order for them to become a Super Bowl level team, which was the question in today's press conference. So fact or fiction on that, there's no one specific area of the team that needs to be addressed in order for them to become a Super Bowl contender.
I mean, this feels a lot like the last question, Ryan, and I'm going to say fiction again because it keeps coming back to, we always love our idioms on here on best ability is availability and everything. Let me throw another one at you. Defense wins championships. I'm just going to have to keep growing on what we just talked about. Like, the defense is the one that's going to have to be the one that takes them to the next level. Like, I'm sorry that I think the defense played very well at the end of the season and stood on their head. A lot of the failings came from the offense, but you want to be the team that goes to the next level. It's going to have to be something from the defense. And yeah, you're going to need a couple of more playmakers on the defense to really do it. I don't really have a prediction on this one because I feel like, again, I'd be repeating the one I just made. I'll go to Jeremy while I think of the prediction. I'll let Jeremy handle it while I'm thinking of the prediction.
Yeah, I'll allow it.
Thank you. I also think it's fiction. To me, it's not even close. Like, cornerback is the team's biggest need, and it's not even close anywhere else, and they need it. We saw the Lions get by the skin of their teeth from December to January while giving up 350 yards passing every single week. And listen, they're so good on offense, these games shouldn't be that close. They shouldn't have to get one last play on offense to win the game or get an interception from Derek Barnes to win a football game. They need to be able to run away with games. They need to be able to blow out teams at times, given how good they are on the offensive side of the ball. And for all the talk that we've had about the conference championship game, about the offense not putting up any points until the final minute of the game and the decisions made by Dan Campbell, defense didn't force a punt. The defense allowed a score on every single second half drive of that game. There needs to be some accountability on that side of the ball too. And the Lions currently have one okay starter at corner. In the league of passing that we live in today, that is not enough to survive. I think we all agreed, even going into the playoffs, that the fatal flaw that was probably going to hold this team out of a Super Bowl was their inability to stop the pass, particularly with their outside corners, and you could make an argument that is what ultimately sunk them. It's a huge need. And so my prediction, 2 draft picks on a cornerback this year.
Can I ask you?
And a free agent addition. 3, we're going full Antoine Randall L, wide receiver, begging for corners. You're going to get 3 of them this offseason.
Let me ask you, and I guess Ryan can go on this too. And I know I'm going a little schlocky with this question, but I do like to ask the question because one of the other thing about it, because that part of your question there, Ryan, on taking the team to the next level, and I'm sure it's going to be a popular one, because I wonder about the offense on how much we did not get to see them, Jeremy, playing from behind this year. And I don't know if that's a concern for you, but I guess the question is Jared Goff a quarterback who can take them to that next level, to the Super Bowl too? I think he is, but it's certainly the number one question for a lot of people.
Also, to put this right back into you said defense wins championships. Mm-hmm. San Francisco, the number 4 pass defense DVOA. Kansas City Chiefs, the number 5 pass defense DVOA.
I mean, that Chiefs team won that game. Like it was described as Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes, but like that was a Chiefs defense that made the Ravens look incompetent. Like that was that game was won by that defense for the AFC.
Okay, fair enough. I'm
sorry, I'm bouncing all over the question. I'm bouncing all over the question, Ryan.
No, it's fine. The points are all made up. We'll see how many points you end up with at the end of the game. So this I'm going to get the quote right, okay? But I may be kind of twisting it a little bit and kind of adding my own appendage to it. So listen to this, okay? So it was a question that Brad was asked about the offensive line and reinvesting in the offensive line being a point of emphasis this offseason. Because, I feel like that much is obvious, right? We talked about maybe Frank's uncertain future. You literally have holes at both the guard positions. Going back to the last question where we were talking about the obvious need that the Lions have at outside corner, if that's 1, is there room for a 1B being the guard position? Is that fact or fiction? Like, is it almost just as much of a need as outside corner is? Because we've seen what interior pressure does to not only the, what kind of game Ben Johnson can call from a running standpoint, but also what kind of game the Lions can run on offense with Jared Goff with interior pressure. So like, I guess it's kind of fact or fiction to this idea that Brad Holmes was kind of alluding to all throughout his press conference of like, it can't all just be this one thing, right? And he talked about like, oh, you want to pair Aiden Hutchinson with another pass rusher, or you want to pair this safety who had a good year with another safety. It's like, you can't just devote all of your attention and become, tunnel vision on corners, Lions need corners. As soon as you put your hand in that hole that's springing a leak,
right?
There's no depth. There are no starters along the interior of the offensive line. So my question is like, how important is it to the Lions to fortify the interior of their offensive line, Jeremy?
Well,
Is it arguably just as important as the outside corner problem?
Yeah, I would say so. I'd say that's fact. And I talked about it a little bit last segment. Like, how many times have we heard the coaching staff say this season? Like, the offensive line is the engine under the hood, right? Bring in some car talk. It's what makes this offense go. And to be quite honest, given the complementary nature of this entire team, it's what makes the entire team go. If they're able to control the ball on offense and run clock, that helps the defense. That helps the passing game. That helps Jared Goff. That helps everybody. And so that is the identity of this team. They are going to go out and make sure that is taken care of. And I don't know if that means re-signing Graham and Jonah, because if you do that, you're set up pretty good. You probably want to add a little bit of depth on the outside, maybe another piece on the inside. Depends how you feel about Colby Sorsdal, but that's a very simple fix. At least on paper, we don't know how much Jonah is asking for, but
it might be a costly fix, though.
It could be
right?
a costly fix, but I think this team is going to be willing to spend the resources if necessary. I know offensive line is already something that they're top 2 or top 3 in spending already, given Taylor's contract, given Frank's contract. And so it's gonna cost more. Graham wants a raise too, understandably so. And you're about to pay Panay, if not this year, then next year. So it's very plausible that they move on from Jonah, but if they do, I am certain they are going to have a backup plan. And they already have that backup plan.
It certainly doesn't seem like if Jonah walks, it's Colby's job or it's Coyote's job. There's no
not yet. And I mean, unless they see something out of Colby that we haven't seen, but given that they've played Aushika in the conference championship game, I think it's safe to say that they don't think he's ready yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if year 2 or year 3 is like the year that they've circled as, okay, he's going to take over then. So maybe they find a stopgap instead of Jonah. Maybe that's the plan. But at the same time, Graham's not going to last forever either. So we'll see.
I'm going to actually try to spice this up and try to go the other way just to try to argue the other side of it. I'm going to say fiction on reinvesting because I think they already, you've basically named everyone they have around here to basically plug up the holes right now if they do let someone like Jonah Jackson walk. I think between Sorsdal and Awasika, like they are going to have enough right now that they're going to want to try the pieces they have here first for the reinvestment before they continue to invest this particular off season. I don't think they go and like cram that room with even more high priority replacements until they at least have just like with the DBs this year. And I know they got Brian Branch, but well, hold on. That's not exactly the greatest because they did get quite a bit of that, but like I do think for what they have here in the building right now, like, I mean, my prediction is that they're probably going to let Jonah Jackson walk. But I also don't think that what you're going to see as investment for that O-line is going to feel more like down the road projects like Sorsdal. It's not going to be grabbing someone who will be a day one starter at the guard position.
I can definitely see that. There's going to there is an immediate need to fill that position though, right? This team isn't looking to go away, and so can you rely on Aushika for a full season? I sure hope not.
Can you rely on Sorsdal for a full season? Is he making that transition to guard because he was playing a lot of tackle for a long time?
Yeah. I mean, they've made it clear from the get-go that's where they want him, right, in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is whether he's ready, and that's we don't have that answer. And the Lions certainly have an idea on when or if he'll ever make that jump to starter, but it would be very dangerous if they let Jonah go and didn't have some sort of immediate plan. And even if that plan is Sorsdal, that's a pretty significant risk, and so I'm hoping that's that's not the plan going forward. Like at least get a stopgap in there, preferably a relatively high end starter. But I'm with you. Like if the Lions decide to move on from Jonah, I think they add a high end starter and add a developmental guy, add a day 2 or a day 3 guard that might not start this year, but they think could start down the road.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is fiction is that they have, to what Brian's trying to say is like, this is as high of a priority as CB. I think they will regard it lower.
Okay.
Yeah. There's some interesting things that I thought when you guys brought up some points, like, Chris talking about, getting a player right to not plug an immediate need and maybe somebody who might be years down the road. I mean, is there another example better for that than Broderick Martin? I mean, that's a guy where they lost Isaiah Buggs, or chose to move on from Isaiah Buggs. Aleem McNeil goes down. He's hurt. It's towards the end of the season. And what do the Lions do? They go get Tyson Alualu to go fill that spot. Not a guy that they, moved off a bunch of day 3 picks to move up into the 3rd round and take a guy like Broderick Martin. So like, there's part of me that thinks they could do that with the offensive line. But to me personally, it feels like that's the strength of this team. And you cannot let that strength become a weakness, because the Lions' ability to put up points in bunches is their superpower. It feels very akin to like the Chiefs teams from years past with Priest Holmes, and I'm bringing up some wild comparisons, but like even the Colts teams with Peyton Manning, right? They could put up points in bunches, but it was always whether or not their defense was going to show up, right? Yep. And that was the thing to Chris's point, right? Like the whole like defense wins championships cliche. It wasn't until like the Colts put together a defense that wasn't a bottom ranked team that a Hall of Fame quarterback could eventually, win a Super Bowl. So I do think that there's last offseason, though, where the Lions poured a ton of resources into fixing the defensive backfield. And you can argue that they made one good choice, and it was Brian Branch.
Yep.
And that goes to show, like, if you get so tunnel vision on fixing something, yeah, they had to take swings, and injuries happen and it sucks. But I think to that point, though, like, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if Brad Holmes took a guard at 29. Like, it wouldn't shock me.
Is that your prediction?
Well, that's just me making sure that I don't end up on, some kind of cereal box or milk carton. Here. Yeah. So, all right. I don't think I have any more questions.
Yeah, we do. We are over the hour mark, so I think this is a pretty good.
Oh yeah, I see the word wrap in the rundown. So
yeah. Okay. Well, I know you guys don't read Slack in the middle of these things, so I'm just trying to try to tell you we're at like the 28-minute mark. That's all. Doing production notes on air. Only thing you can hear on the Pride to Detroit POD cast, because it's all organic, even if it's knotted and brambled.
You're getting us raw.
Okay, and I'm the one
raw dogging it. You want me to take it a step further? Yeah, if you're gonna,
I don't want to ever hear complaints about my meat reads ever again. For myself, for Ryan Matthews, for Jeremy Reisman, I'm Chris Burfett. We got more coming here in the off season. Midweek mailbag returning at some point. Some new offerings to replace some of our in-season content. It's coming down the pike here once we've recharged the batteries a bit. As always, we'll see you Starside. It didn't give me the
recording stopped.
There it is.
Because I was recording. That's why.
Oh, okay. So you had to stop as well. I get you.
Oh, Laura's in the chat. Laura Schlitt.
Hi, Laura.
Trying to escape Eric, huh? I get it. I spent an entire day with him in the airport.
Hey, Laura, if Eric's saying I'm right, then I feel good about it.
About what?
Probably about like guard in the first round.
Yeah, whatever. Talking draft.
I mean, talk about positional value. Thumbing your nose to it.
That's what he does. For better or for worse. Mostly for better. But we'll see. We'll see.
We'll just see about that, Mr. Brad Holmes.
I'm not going to sit here and cower just because he called out Burkett and Carlos. You can't scare me, Brad Holmes. I still think taking a running back in the first round is a bad investment. Come at me, bro.
He's going to burn off more than the mustache next time.
All right. I want to go home and eat pizza.
Oh, fancy that. I'm eating pizza too.
I had a bunch of vegetarian lasagna I made. So we're all eating Italian.
I had that the stuffed crust from Papa John's that they're calling calzone.
I have not seen
that. It's just stuffed crust. It's just stuffed crust. I literally can't taste what they changed.
Probably nothing.
Better learn how to speak XFL beat reporter, buddy. The worst change they've made, first off, calling it UFL is still disgusting. But like the fact that it's not the week after the Super Bowl, that it's like I have to wait till March. Like I'm not going to give a shit about this by March. I'm sorry.
What are you going to care about in March, though?
Baseball. Free agency.
Baseball happens in March?
Spring training.
Ugh.
Okay, come on. You cannot go, when I'm giving you the options between spring training baseball and minor league American football.
Yeah, I can. I still don't know.
Which one, Jeremy?
I still don't know what a split squad is. I still don't understand what that is.
For spring training?
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of like you have an A team and a B team.
But are they both part of your actual team?
Yeah,
Double A or triple A?
Yeah, because you got an expanded like football, you got an expanded roster, you got some triple A guys in there and everything.
Yeah. So think of it as like some the Lions preseason game one where they have like
90
a crap ton of guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of just wanted to not know what it meant so that I could play ignorant.
You don't have to worry about it though, because you'll be watching a lot of Red Wings hockey into April. So
that's right. I'm going to spend a big portion of March in Florida, just so people know.
You could go to Lakeland.
That's no, I don't want to. I'm going to be there.
I've got a new car. I have every excuse I can make to make a road trip out to Arizona for the Cactus League.
What does that mean? What's the Cactus League?
So spring training is split between whether or not your spring training facilities are based in Florida, the Grapefruit League, or you are basically in the Phoenix metro area, which is a lot of teams have started to move their spring training to Arizona, to specifically around Tempe, Phoenix, Glendale, because you don't get rained on as much in the spring like you do in Florida. And so that's the difference. Cactus League, Grapefruit League. Is your spring training in Florida or is it in Arizona?
Why do we have to change things up between American National League? Why can't
it's not even an NL-AL split, to be honest.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Why isn't it? Why are we making different leagues for the preseason?
Because it's easier because nobody in spring training is going to suddenly fly a plane to take their spring training team between Arizona and Florida.
But why?
The Arizona spring training teams all play
Florida,
each other.
One league go to the National or go to the Arizona.
But I think it's more at the discretion of the teams who have decided whether they want to do their spring training in Florida or in Arizona. And yes, the Florida thing too, like Florida, they're scattered up and down the peninsula in Florida, versus the Cactus League, everyone's in that Phoenix metro area.
Baseball doesn't make sense.
Spring training baseball.
The Tigers are playing
Lions football so much now.
Come on, Ryan. Guns.
So the UFL, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When is that supposed to start?
End of March.
Yeah, they just released the schedule today.
like the 24th or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so people, you can't get so mad at The Rock being part of whatever WrestleMania main event that they're going to do, because that's just a perfect opportunity for The Rock to put himself
Push
center
the
stage
UFL.
before his UFL league kicks off. So you
I still
can't
hate
get
that they
mad.
call it the UFL.
You can't get mad at the brand management, but you definitely can get mad at the booking. But
I can get mad at the brand management calling it the UFL, invoking memories of a league that died in 2008.
well, the Lions black jerseys died too, but everybody
Why
wants
didn't you
those
just call it
back.
the XFL again? Or like USFL? You could have chose one name, but
I'd probably steer clear of anything that Vince McMahon has ever touched.
so well, I would say USFL, then I realized it was that the original one is still touched by Donald Trump. So
Man,
UFL.
this is a throwback podcast. We did car talk, and now we're doing wrestling talk.
Mm-hmm. Yep. At least it's tangentially related to football.
yeah. We're not doing a WrestleMania first bite.
Roman Reigns used to play football for Georgia Tech.
Tech.
And he was also, I think, on the Vikings
Practice. No.
preseason roster.
What is it about wrestlers and the Vikings? Because didn't Brock Lesnar try out for the Vikings at one point too?
He did. He played a little bit in preseason.
And they got in a motorcycle accident, I think.
Malcolm Rodriguez is a wrestler.
He is.
K Fletch, 5 months subscribed to the channel, says, "Where'd the mustache go?" My bathroom trash can. And a little bit in the sink. No, you're not really supposed to do that. Exactly. 6 months subscribed to the channel. Guy Utah, 27 months, says, "Looking forward to the new normal Lions." Okay.
Even
Thank
just
you for that grunt.
if the Lions just are routinely in the playoffs, that would just make me such a probably generally just a happier person.
That's where we're at.
You say that now, but these
The goalposts move.
the goalpost moves and the meltdown, and I can tell you the meltdowns from fans after losing in the playoffs will just get more and more intense.
That's fine. I know I won't ever be that way. Because remember the agreement we made, chat? Remember the agreement we made? If we ever get too big for our Benito Jones overalls,
Call us
tell
out.
us.
You
You
call
tell
us
us.
out.
Call us spoiled.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about being spoiled. I'm worried about chat being spoiled.
Oh.
Not chat who's here right now. Chat who I have to deal with after.
Oh.
After-
so just
on a
the
post-game stream.
the certain kind of chat.
Yeah, YouTube.
Couple people asking about Movember stuff.
Yes,
I'm not going to spend
I know
tonight.
I do know also I will be paying here soon. I'm trying to clean up this week. I will be paying soon the cooking stream. I haven't forgotten about it.
Nice.
It's not going to be an Olive Garden situation.
Yes, we all are going to owe Benito Jones overalls and have to wear that for a stream.
Wait, all of us?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So-
I gotta
I'll
order those.
Amazon. Let's look for some overalls right now.
Do you have a lead?
I think I should pay for everybody's overalls from the Detroit Lions store if they still have those ones, the Lions ones.
I think they should cut you a discount too. Like,
Yeah. I don't know if that's still in the store or not.
Fanatics, but it says small. Let's see. I think these might be women's. Yes, these are women's overalls.
I refuse to
Dang.
buy anything from Fanatics. I'll buy overalls
Oh my
and
God.
I'll turn it into a little thing that the girls.
Yeah,
and
can I just get
do.
like a Lions iron-on patch or something?
We'll just bedazzle some overalls and get some fabric paint and paint lions on there.
Oh, just get one of can we not get like an iron-on logo and just slap it on there?
I mean, you don't even have to do that. I think Benito Jones cosplay is just overalls and nothing else. Yeah, you're not wearing an undershirt. I'm not.
No, I'm not. I wasn't
whoa.
planning on it. That's why I'm dreading this.
Oh man, I don't know. I
Are
think
we
it's
going to be able to do
it's-
that on Twitch? They did walk back the tasteful.
This is gonna be all of this is gonna be tasteful.
No. I'm saying they walked that back. We can't even do that.
What?
Some Twitch terms of service though
No, we're
for if
fine.
they see some side boob.
We're fine.
Okay.
I'm going to be given some side boob.
Yeah,
That's
you
for
know
sure.
what? Maybe we need to get Laura Schlitt involved, and she needs to use her cricket or whatever to make Pride of Detroit overalls.
I don't have a cricket.
But yeah, we'll do that. I still need to do the polar plunge. Chris will do his cooking stream. I still have to eat a liver and onion smoothie. What else do I have to? Oh, I still have to do the yoga pants too. Jeez, I forgot about that. I'm also going to be sending out finally some of the raffle items. Probably not this week, but the week after. And then yeah, we got 5 spins of the Wheel of Pain and 2 extreme, which will get done. I promise. I haven't forgotten any of those things.
I think I owe some eggs as well.
Dan, I got you covered. The cards are going in the mail. I'm sending you a little extra something.
Oh yeah,
for being so patient. Yeah, Hot One stream I'm super looking forward to.
Are we doing hot? Did we hit the goal for hot ones?
We sure did.
Let's go. Let's go.
JT Sam, funny you say that. The beans are on my desk at home, so they're ready. So we had talked about it though, right? Like we talked about like putting together like a stream or a couple of them to kind of knock some of these out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're in the off season, so this is when it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
Can let her hair
especially down. Especially February before we've hit free agency too.
Right. Yep.
Like this is a really good time to knock all this out.
But not tonight.
Not
Right.
tonight, no.
Right. Yeah. You know, you do one of these. Jeremy, you got a stew going.
I also am. I haven't talked with Jeremy about this. I'm going to talk to him after the stream ends. But I am working on some new offerings for the feed. Might be podcast only. Have to see. But I did like where we got with like at least 3 episodes a week. So, and there is a old name who wants to be doing for some of our longtime listeners. One of our old correspondents who might be making a triumphant return at some point.
Maybe. I heard he is employed.
Did he get employed again?
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been busy this week, so I got to
Oh no, you're good.
touch ground with him.
Okay. Am I? No. 100 bits from Nick the Greek says, "Can't believe Brad Holmes called out Eric for being insufficiently optimistic about the team." Sounds about right. What is the Wheel of Pain? That is the Wheel of Pain, which we earned every. What was it this year? Every 5,000 we raised for charity.
Something like that.
Or 1,000? I don't remember.
Let's turn on the oven real quick.
1,000, I think.
I
Wasn't
think
it
it was
1,000?
1,000 in every.
5,000 was the extreme.
10,000 was.
10,000 was.
Yeah. But we're not going to spend that tonight.
That Michigan. That's what I'm saying. Pickle juice. That's a Jeremy thing. I will say though, when the question gets asked, "What is the Wheel of Pain?"
Ugh.
When you
God,
think
just
of the
looking
Wheel
at
of
it
Pain, what do you
grosses
think
me
of,
out.
Jeremy? Like, what's the first thing you think of that you associate with the Wheel of Pain?
Probably eating crickets.
You do a lot
I
of
say
that.
that there was a lot of that. It was either that or the wasabi because it felt
Oh,
like just
God.
dread trying to get anyone to do the wasabi.
The wasabi damn near killed me.
Yeah.
I know that when I think of the Wheel of Pain now, I think of a spoonful of garlic, and one of the worst experiences in my life.
I still carry 3 bags of crickets on my work desk.
I thought you were going to say on your persons.
No,
like
not
you
on
go
my-
to Allen Park with your crickets.
Is that one empty? Or is
Oh God, it
just
sounds
hiding in
like
the
it's coming
corners?
down hard again. Jesus.
All right.
Kelly boy, cut it out.
All right, I think it's time to get out of here.
What happened to the Toledo in you, Chris?
I'm still Toledo. I'm still Toledo. Like, you should see just fucking like, if anyone is doing what Ryan's doing, just go look at some of the pictures, man. Like, it's not a joke.
All the other days where you get to wear shorts no matter what.
I'm not complaining. I'm really not. Also, I live on a second floor. I just was making an offhand comment.
That was a very Brad Holmes move of you right there.
What?
I'm not complaining talking about all this weather that we're getting. Brad Holmes, I'm not here to say
I'm worried for other people. I'm worried for other people. I'm worried for you, Ryan, and the bets you are going to. Yes. After what we talked about your Red Wings bet, yes, I am.
Should never be worried about a sure thing.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah, I see someone redeemed ChatGPT. I'm gonna have to refund you there because it is 9. We've been going for 3 hours here.
Yeah.
It's time for us to go back to our lives. I got stuff to do that I'm nervous about later in the week that I have to prepare for. And maybe we got a mailbag coming later this week as well. So anyways, thanks for hanging out for 3 hours, all of you that have been around since the beginning of the show. I don't got anybody to rate either, so we're just going to end stream. Thanks to YouTube, thanks to Twitch. We'll see you guys hopefully later in the week, if not next Monday, because that's where we didn't even mention, like, we've moved to Mondays now.
Yeah.
So get ready for Monday night shows again.
J-Dubs, don't redeem a list cast.
No.
We're leaving.
Bye, everybody.